good afternoon and welcome to session 2 on the theme AI, Justice Systems and the Future of Legal Education. I would like to invite the panelists onto the stage, please. Ms. Smita Gupta, Director, Government Tech and Public Sector, Jhana. Ms. Arushi Jain, Partner, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. Professor Siddharth Raja, Executive Dean, Vinayaka Missions Law School. Ms. Narayan Ramaswamy, National Leader, Education, Skill Development, Government and Public Services, KPMG, India. Ms. Elizabeth Seshadri, Partner, Ayer and Thomas. And it will be moderated by Professor Padmanabha, Dean, Academic Governance, OP Jindal Global University.
Check, check, check. Okay, may I request all the people who are sitting at the back, standing at the back, to take the seats? Can somebody close the door if nobody's going to come in? Yeah, I just don't want people to be standing. Either they can sit or they can have a coffee outside. No problem. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the second panel, thematic session. Topic is AI, Justice System and the Future of Legal Education. I am very, very happy to have my fellow panelists here who will be doing most of the hard work of answering the question. And I'll be doing the least of the hard work by asking questions, right? So it's easy for a moderator to ask questions and allow the panelists to reflect. But I thought, let me set the tempo of this thematic session. What is that we are start talking when we are talking about AI, justice system, and the future of legal education? You know, I wanted to tell all of you who are all students of law or students of education or lawyers who are in this room, there are two papers which has actually impacted my life, my, I would say, time as a professor to teach law. These two papers have created every business that actually exists today. And I think it is very important that we talk about this because all of these people, I want them to think on one core word and reflect their answers when they are thinking about this core word. And the core word and the philosophy of this conversation I would want to keep is the word transaction cost. Transaction cost, right? The greatest Nobel laureate, the guy who gave business idea for Amazon, business idea for every US company in the last generation, 20 years, came from a fundamental paper written by Ronald Coase called The Problem of Social Cost, right? I don't know how many of you would have had a chance to read this paper. It's a 35-page paper. I recommend everybody read. Ola, Uber, Amazon, name Flipkart, name any company in the world. The idea emerged from solving a simple proposition of social cost or reducing the social cost. If you're not read this, you should read this. And if you have read this, you will absolutely understand where I'm coming from and what AI is trying to do and how it is going to be very significant to what we are doing and how it is going to basically challenge, all our existence. So I am a very firm believer in this room that AI is going to impact in what we are doing, be it legal work, be it justice delivery work, be it legal education, be it legal profession, it is going to impact. I'm a firm believer. So before I invite you to answer any questions, I would want all the panelists to, introduce themselves and just echo what is your overall take. Do you seriously think we are actually living in a world of myth and this AI is just going to come and pass by and we will all be very happy and the life will continue? Or it is going to rattle our existence in the work way we are doing and it is time for us to realign. So either for or against, I would want you to voice out and introduce yourself. That will make it very easy for me to push questions based on your initial ideation, initial standing. Where do you stand? So I would request, Harushi to start. Quick introduction and your initial remarks on this. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Arushi. I'm a partner at Cyril Amarchand. I'm based out of Bombay and very happy to
Arushi,
be
can
here.
you speak through the mic?
Okay, sorry. Is it better? Yeah, hi, I'm Arushi. I'm a partner at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. I'm based out of Bombay and very happy to be here. To your question, AI will change and impact our lives. The question is how much do we let AI impact us in our day-to-day life? That's what we should deliberate.
Okay, so I have to follow. No, that's fine. Good afternoon, Siddharth Raja, the Executive Dean at Vinayaka Missions Law School, for the record, previously in the corporate law. I think the analogy is that if you're sitting on the beach and watching the cyclone come in, you can complain about the cyclone, but the cyclone is going to come anyway. Well, except that the cyclone might drift away, depending on the prevailing wind conditions. So I'm going to be deliberately intuitive, and say that I think AI is having an impact, but like with many of the technological, and I'm doing this, by the way, deliberately. I'm going to take a leaf out of your book, Paddy, okay, and say that yes, it apparently seems to have a completely transformative effect. If you ask me, it's a chimera. I'll explain. I think it'll pass.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. You might have expected to see the co-founder of Jhana, but I'm taking his stead slightly last minute. My name is Smita Gupta. I'm the Director of Public Sector and GovTech at Jhana AI. We're a 3-year-old startup with the mission of leveraging AI to increase access to justice and to really transform the judicial as well as the legal landscape, because everybody talks about taking care of patients or talking about your financial well-being, but we really don't talk about the legal well-being of Indian citizens. And talking about the ethics of care, to answer your question, I definitely believe that this is a watershed moment. And when electricity was first came up, you could have used it to build nuclear weapons, or you could have used it to power social media or the internet. And so it really depends on how you leverage any fundamental or foundational technology. And I truly believe that AI is one of those. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Narayan Ramaswamy. Narayan. I'm a partner with KPMG's Advisory Services. And it's a very interesting question, sir. My view is, don't ignore AI. There are changes that come, and sometimes people think too much of the change and get scared, and sometimes they ignore. Both these guys fail. Those who acknowledge what happens and are prepared for it are the ones who succeed. I mean, I'll take a couple of minutes to explain this. When automobiles were introduced, everybody said that this is disastrous. Look at what's going to happen. There'll be so many accidents in the world. And what will happen to all our horses and the bullock carts? We're going to, have crisis. And when computers were introduced recently, I was a young man trying to get into the field then. There were garros everywhere saying computer is taking away jobs. because of computers that we are going to lose this. And like you rightly said, they said computers are going to think so much for humans. There is no role for humans anymore and stuff like that. In the education field that I'm working on, there was a new subject called computer applications that was introduced, just so that you can face this world full of computers. Well, did the world change? Definitely it changed. But was it disastrous? No. I think AI is at a stage where it is going to bring in significant change. There's no doubt about it. And those changes will not happen all of a sudden like a tsunami or something. It will gradually come in, and if you are ready to embrace that change and you can, like, leverage that, you succeed. You ignore it, I think it's definitely going to be a failure.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Seshadri. I'm a lawyer. I practice here in Chennai. So I woke up this morning to hear the news of Oracle firing 12,000 people, and that was deeply distressing. Maybe the numbers, I'm wrong, I'm corrected. 30,000, he's right. 12,000 only Hyderabad, I understand. That was deeply distressing. And this has been happening for the last few months, and it's been predicted to continue. So certainly, whatever is happening in that space is extremely distressing, and policy needs to now intervene, because we are not building a society for AI. We are using AI to build our society. And there is no point if you're going to throw people out of jobs and consumers out of jobs, etc. What are you left with? I don't know the answers. When Siddharth asked me to come here for an AI conference, I was wondering why I'm being invited. I am no expert on AI. I know nothing about AI. I use it like any ordinary user. But then I realized that nobody knows enough about AI. There is probably a small group that works on making profits out of AI, running companies, AI companies, and pushing the agenda, of course. But I don't think they should be the ones in the conversation. They're doing their tech work. The people in the conversations should be the ones who are likely to be affected, the people who run organizations, institutions, etc., etc. And we need to understand motives behind why people think a lot of AI is good, etc. Understanding motives is important. For instance, is it for enhancing profit of an already profitable ecosystem? Or is it for improving an institution like the justice delivery system? So I am going to confine myself to the justice delivery system, where we certainly have a lot of problems. And AI is a wide range. It's just an ecosystem. It's not this one product that is going to come. This much I have understood, even with my limited knowledge. AI is, there's mathematical models, there's computational architecture, there is data-based learning systems, so many things. You can have it at a narrow range, narrow AI for application, or you can have higher-end, super intelligent, or general, etc., which will think, analyze, write judgments, etc. I am not going to go into, I'm not talking about your super intelligent AI. It's already been trashed sufficiently by Justice Suryakant in the last month's conference in Bangalore. It's been trashed by Justice Oka, who was talking about it being inapplicable in the case of evidence in law. I'm a lawyer, so you have to stop me. I'll keep talking. Okay, I have the time then. So I think fear of AI has been sufficiently promoted within the legal system. I'm not saying we should be, have this utopian ideal that AI can solve all our problems, but we certainly have problems in the legal system, the justice delivery system, delays, bogged down, not being able to be accessed by several parts of society. If we can use those parts of an AI ecosystem, that will help us. If it means digitization, automation, etc., I don't see a reason why not. However, with caution, with sufficient safeguards, so that we ensure that constitutional principles are not played around with. And as a lawyer, for me, that's very important. You don't forsake fundamental ideas that has taken us centuries to build up. Ideas of rule of law, ideas of certain principles from the Constitution, due process, etc. We don't compromise on those while we use systems to improve our efficiency. The question, therefore, is You're still not stopping me, and I'm wondering why. You're just being polite.
I
Okay,
would
I
say
will
that
therefore hand over.
I would say the efficiency bit you come back to me at the later point, but I heard you. So you are saying that at the level of access to justice and court delays, you would want to see how AI works. Okay, I'll hold on to that view. It is 1954. A young man called Ronald Coase walks into greatest economic living giant Joseph Stiglitz's room, and he says, "Joseph, I have an amazing proposition to make. This is a real story. What I'm telling you." And he says that, "Joseph, I think in 1954, this is the argument. I think the lawyers are going to be insignificant. I think this world can be without lawyers." That is the paper. The paper is all about that the world can be without lawyers. And this argument was made by Ronald Coase in 1954 in the paper, The Problem of Social Cost. This is he was basically having this conversation with Joseph Stiglitz, who went on to become one of the world's best, economist, and Thomas Friedman. Both of them got Nobel Prize at a later point of time. The argument he pushed was, Joseph, the world is very clear. If there is no transaction cost, each individuals would bargain, they will negotiate, they will settle their disputes. We don't need lawyers. The lawyers are making this entire conversation or idea of, litigation more complex and increase the transaction cost. Right? This was argued in 1954, mind you. The question that I'm going to ask you is going to be very, very similar. Today, the layman has no idea what is the transaction cost that he is basically attaching to any given dispute, any given litigation. The lawyers cannot and can never, at least from an Indian perspective, say how long it will take for a litigation to start and a litigation to end and a relief to be provided. No way, right? So that is a transaction cost by itself, right? So the question to all of you is, I want you to think through this. What did Amazon do? It reduced the transaction cost for a customer from getting into a bookshop, from manually searching the books, from manually understanding what is the book that he would want to buy. In a phone, he could do that. Sitting at home, he could order, the book would come to him. Ola and Uber is the same. There was a huge transaction cost for people to get into a taxi, understand what the price of the taxi and pay, where Ola and Uber gave that pricing upfront by calculating the distance that you travel and what is the money that you pay, by reducing the transaction cost, making it easy. What AI is doing today is absolutely something similar. I'll give you an example and I want you to reflect, because this is the example I really want to talk. The Stanford Codex project, which was created by Stanford Law School and Stanford Center for Technology, has completely computationed all the judgments in United States court, and it has reached a 90% probability wherein if I put the name of the parties and the law that I would want to argue and the parties who are arguing, the lawyers who are arguing, the clients would get to know what is the probability of winning or losing a case. Therefore, reducing the transaction cost for a client, even before he fights a case, telling him how he can adjust or settle. In India, there is nothing. Plea bargaining does exist, but only in paper. Right? It doesn't get converted into practice. AI is going to have a huge impact on transaction cost. Given the fact that it is going to have an impact on transaction cost, it is going to challenge how the lawyers need to conduct themselves, how the justice system need to conduct itself, and at the end of the day, how each of the parties who are involved in this need to align to the cost. They all need to work to make sure that the customers or the clients or the victims or the accused, their transaction cost has to come down in the long run. This is the Nobel laureate's paper 1954 I'm talking about. And AI is absolutely trying to unbundle it. Given this is the scenario, I would want to ask you, because both of you represent law firm, the way you have to practice law, the way you have to indulge and have conversation.
Going to impact, and it's not a question it's not something that we see far away from now. We use AI on a day-to-day basis, but I think I come back to my original point of what is it that is getting impacted when you say AI. Efficiency, if AI can be used for bringing in efficiency, yes, it is a beautiful impact on your life. If I can finish my work, do my drafting, go home early, and let my team also go home early, definitely. If I can answer a question to a client immediately because I have research available, which would have otherwise taken me maybe a week to do, and the AI is giving me that concise responses or case law summarized in a few hours, and I can talk better, it's making me look smarter. Yes. So I would say that, AI, at least in the way we use it on a day-to-day basis, is a tool or a technology which is making us look better. But at the same time, just like you mentioned, there's a social cost. I would also put an intellectual cost to it, which is my cost. When someone has a problem, I don't think they only want an AI based solution. If that was the case, then technically Google gives you all answers to, from the time you have a cold to the symptoms that you put it, several medicines come out. But and there is a genre of people who would rely on Google. Even we rely on Google to say, Acha, if these are the symptoms, probably this is the answer. Maybe this is the solution to it. Maybe take these OTC drugs and you will feel better. But we don't do that always. So the shift that I'm seeing is that there'll be different classes or different genres that will be created. One where AI will make legal justice system more accessible to people who did not have the knowledge about it. So for example, if suppose there is an accident case and you don't even know what your rights are, somebody comes and says that no, this is an accident, I'll take you to the court, you have to pay this much compensation, and I don't know what to do about it. I can probably use an AI, and AI can tell me that, in such and such situation, these are possibly the laws or these are the possible rights that you have. So this is an immediate remedy or an immediate answer which is available at your fingertips. But anything more nuanced than that, I don't think that's where AI really is coming to help you, at least as of today. Yet. Not yet. We will, I'll also.
Arshi, I want to push you more. I'm really sorry. I agree to you partly, but I also do not agree with you partly. But I want to push you more. Where I want to push you is, you know, let's understand what AI is. I think somewhere we also have a misunderstanding that AI is not just something that is automating human labor. Let's be very clear. It is trying to automate our cognitive skills, ability to think, ability to reflect, ability to understand, ability to evaluate, ability to analyze. Now, these are the skills which actually created information asymmetry in legal markets. What is information asymmetry? A layman did not have the understanding, the ability, the ideation to think, evaluate, because he did not have the knowledge.
Correct.
Now, no longer that knowledge which we are talking is going to be a differentiating factor between a layman and a lawyer. That is challenging because that information asymmetry which created legal markets is under question because there is no longer going to be that asymmetry, right? And let me tell you, sorry, AI is not going to just solve the accident case. It is going to solve the most complicated computational antitrust cases in US are being solved by codex than a court, antitrust law court. That is the situation where it has reached because people have invested in building such LLMs in US. But we have in India, we have not yet there. But I'm sure in next 3, 4, 5 years we will be there. My question to you is, if that information asymmetry is getting away between the client and the lawyer, does the role of a lawyer, does the role of the law firms changing?
The roles of a lawyer and a law firm are changing as we speak. But at the same time, it's not just knowledge. Knowledge is everywhere and it is available for everyone to use. Today, also, you can go and pick up the law book. It's available not only to the lawyer, but every person in the audience can go and use it. It is the applicability of that knowledge, it is the analysis that you bring to the table, it is that intellectual capital for which you go to a lawyer in this case, or a judicial or a judge in this case, to say, this is the situation. I know these are the facts. I probably have read a little bit because information is freely available and I have some idea about it. But what would you advise? It is the advice that the lawyer is supposed to give, which is the critical part.
Okay,
Can AI give? Yes. But do you want to rely? Question mark.
Fine. I wanted to give it to Smita. Sorry, your name is not there, so I'll just refer to Smita. where Arushi says is she still thinks the human ability to analyze, evaluate is going to be more sophisticated than the AI's ability to evaluate and understand. I may disagree with you, and I want to give you a reason why I disagree, and I want you to respond to that. I am a player of chess. I have played chess. I have represented playing game chess at different levels. The highest ELO rated player in the world of chess, they call it as a ELO rated player, a person whose ability to think, outsmart, is the way they assess ELO rating is Magnus Carlsen, who is the highest rated is 2898. In 1990, there was the world's biggest chess competition that took place between two individuals, Gary Kasparov and IBM system Deep Blue. And if anybody would have followed chess or if anybody would have understood chess, Kasparov defeated Deep Blue. At that time, the processing ability of the IBM machines was limited. And then Deep Blue again challenged Kasparov, and Kasparov lost to Deep Blue. This is the headlines. Gary Kasparov is God to me, and he will always remain, because if you understand how he plays chess, it was inhuman. Today, Magnus Carlsen is the highest ELO rated player, much higher than Gary Kasparov. There is an AI tool called Stockfish. The Stockfish's ELO rating today is 3,800. Okay, what it is? If you all think that human mind can analyze, evaluate, understand, and our cognitive abilities are X, here there is a AI tool whose ELO rating is 3,800. It can destroy Magnus Carlsen even before he can think his first move. That is where the game of chess has reached. Right? I want to ask you this. Since you represent an AI company, how are you seeing this phase? Because AI is automating the cognitive abilities, which means the human ability to analyze, evaluate, understand is going to be challenged in a way that it has never been challenged before. So I want you to represent, since you represent a company from AI, I want you to talk about this, because I think these panel discussions should push us to things which we should be really talking about.
No, thank you for that context. I'll say two things. The first is that the example that you gave of the 1954 paper, AI was already in existence at that time. You can call it pattern matching or machine learning or very, rudimentary rule-based systems. But the analytics that helps an AI system predict the outcome of a case is essentially running on a very rudimentary pattern matching system with, of course, some sophistication and nuances with generative AI. Why is it that it is only after 70, 80 years of gestation that AI is having its moment now? I think we need to be asking that, because, and one of the most obvious reasons that you'll see anywhere is that the world is now slowly turning to become a bigger knowledge economy rather than a manufacturing or an agricultural economy. And it is only now that it can really create a dent in the way that knowledge is processed and consumed. Having said that, I think the one thing we are sort of taking for granted is that even if this brilliant insight, all the analytics, everything is available to citizens or humans, that they are capable of digesting it and understanding it. And I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, Jhana launched an AI product that helped do AI research and drafting. And it was fine-tuned and trained on 16 million laws, judgments, all kinds of books, journals, everything you have in your law school library, right? And till date, we have 12,000 users, lawyers, who use the tool. In 1.5 years, we've only reached 12,000 lawyers. Or you could say in 1.5 years, wow, you've reached 12,000 lawyers. My question here is, or my humble submission here is, that the reason we haven't hit 1 million users, 1 lakh users, is because people still want to hear from people. And that is the reason why we actually started a human-in-the-loop service now. We've literally pivoted our company to have the AI service be consumed by operators and lawyers in-house. and the citizens are the ones who are interfacing with the human. And this was a purely market-led decision because we were not seeing people willing to pay for AI. They said, I'll just get a Claude subscription. It is drafting my document much better than your Jhana can. And while they're right, they are willing to get a 30-40% accurate response for a marginal cost. Actually, we're cheaper than Claude. Um, Versus an 80-90% document just because it's unfamiliar. Nobody's talking about it. That level of trust and that idea of legitimacy and credibility is missing right now. So the way humans make decision is really emotional, right? We are emotional beings. And so AI cannot readily replace that. So you're right, Arishi, like no, your work, I would disagree, is not intellectual. I think it's emotional work. It's emotional labor. It's deep care that you show to your client that I actually care about your case, and I've put in my entire weekend drafting this for you. They will much rather appreciate that versus a draft, the same draft, maybe even a superior draft that you prepare in 30 minutes. People want to feel cared for.
Sure. Thank you, Smita. Let me push this to Siddhartha Narayan Ramaswamy a bit more. Um, Siddharth, I was at a US conference where we are talking about AI and its effect on legal education. This is going to be a very, very sophisticated push, but let me push. Let me understand how we're going to respond. The conversation is very, 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 very clear. The top companies of the world are okay to hire people without even degrees, without any formal education. At the same time, people who are having degrees are not able to showcase their skill, and therefore they are being, there's a challenge that if they do not augment and enhance, they will get replaced. I think the threat is to everybody in this room. What I want to ask you is, who are we to decide how the education ought to be acquired in the future? Do we think we even become part of that decision making? The education system, I would want Suresh, Samuel to pay a little bit attention because I'm challenging everything that we are doing now. The education system that we are actually part of, right? It's a very linear thing. We come and tell you need to do a degree for 3 years, 4 years, and master's is for 2 years, PhD is for 3 years. Do you think in this quest of AI, where everybody is going to have a more dynamic based education, I want to learn AI tool for lawyers, I will go and do a micro credentials for 6 months, and I would want to go out and make myself employable. Do you think this formalized ideation of education, law degree, law programs, anything is going to get challenged? Because
my simple answer to that question is yes, in the way you put it, right? The issue, like with everything else, is in the way you formulate the question. If you formulate it to me like that, my obvious answer is going to be yes. We are working a square peg in a round hole. I'll draw your attention to an episode of the Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister, right? Where Humphrey tells his minister, "You want a yes on the poll? I'll design questions that will get you a yes." The same set of questions, the same issue. It's about whether there should be I forget the issue. He says, "Now I'll get you a no answer." And he repeats the questions differently, you get a no answer. So, in the way you put it, it's obvious, because if I said anything else, you will call me an ostrich with his head in the sand. Okay, so I'm challenging you on that only because you put it like that. I'll tell you what the problem is. In my humble opinion, the problem is the way in which the issue is being framed. Okay, there is no doubt that AI, you rightly asked the question, what is AI? AI itself is this slightly amorphous being that assumes various types of roles and various types of characteristics. It has clearly gone beyond the mere process of automation into the more cognitive aspects, you say. 100%. And there will be examples like that, like you mentioned. I read Coase years ago along with Spelunchian Explorers. I can't quite remember it now, right? Maybe if I had the access to an AI machine, it would have told me what it was. But here's the thought. Here's a thought. This prevailing ideology is nothing but a brainwash. You hear it so often, that you are brainwashed into believing it's true. Am I telling you this because I believe that it is of no use? I am only saying this because I want to further the debate. I'll tell you what the issue is. I have got an example for you. I'll go back 15 years to from 1954, 17 actually. In the year 1938, there was a gentleman called Nikolai Bukharin who was put on trial by Stalin. Okay? Because Stalin saw Bukharin as the old guard of Lenin, and he had to get rid of him. Bukharin was the father, along with Leon Trotsky, of modern communism, perverted by Stalin and his gang thereafter. Bukharin was put on trial. It was a short trial, right? He was obviously subjected to torture, both mental and physical. And therefore, the assumption was that he would sing like a canary because his wife was threatened with death and worse, and he was beaten black and blue and left in the cold. But Stalin did the unthinkable. He brought in two Western diplomats, one American and one Englishman, and said, watch the trial, I will show you how Russian justice works, right? And it was a fair trial in the sense that it was in open, it was not an in-camera proceedings. Bukharin finally condemned himself in open court when he had a chance to say no. And you know what? The conclusion that was drawn by this gentleman called McLean, right? McLean, by the way, went on to become Joseph Broz Tito's right-hand man. It's a fascinating story. He couldn't, for the life of him and believe, why would Bukharin condemn himself when he had the chance to say, I am innocent? And his only conclusion was, for 30 years, he had read nothing but communist ideology. And that therefore, because Mother Russia was accusing me of being a traitor, I must be a traitor. That is the fallacy in the argument, logically. That's the fallacy in the argument, right? Hence, even if you say it is taking over cognitive, right? Even if you say it is taking over cognitive, you are again looking at it from the point of view of a solution. Not all of human activity is solution-based. Human activity, as rightly pointed out, has emotion, right? And it is, to some extent, it is to live in harmony, which is not necessarily the opposite of solution, right? So I will take, and I'll end on this by saying the mediation example, right? Why would you mediate a dispute? Could AI mediate a dispute? I'm not getting into it. It may well. It's Armageddon, no? The thought exists, right? That if AI can develop so much that it can solve anything, right? Can it solve the existential question of where we came from? Right? I'll tell you, before, I've always asked this question, I'm going to stop on this. Before the Big Bang, what existed?
You know,
what existed before the Big Bang?
Good question. So you basically.
So I'm joining.
No,
believe me, I'm only joining argument with you because of the fallacy of the whole situation.
I love this, and I will love this, and very nicely Siddharth has gotten away by putting a question, and not answering the question and asking the question, reversing the question.
At heart, sir, I'm a communist.
As a teacher would say, if you do not know the answer, then make it more sophisticated, confuse, and then come out and ask a question.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah. And I have to be very honest here. National Law School Bangalore has trained Siddharth in a very beautiful way. Congratulations to National Law School Bangalore.
I didn't know what he said.
Wait.
I will not
I'm just joking. Let me, but I still say that if you do not know, I think the law school teaches you confuse and then ask another question and move away. So it's better that, you're neither there or nor here. I have been a professor for 27 years and I will not allow this to just get away like this, but I don't know. I'll come back to Narayan, see, Narayan. Our man says that knowledge is, the machines will have a knowledge to the extent that knowledge is produced by a human mind, or written or quantified or recorded by a human mind, which is a fair proposition, right? Until that knowledge is not there, is not written, it is there in your head, you are safe, right? The moment you put it in written, you put it in a system, and if that system is going to be having access to the knowledge, then thank you so much, bye bye, because that knowledge can be better analyzed, better utilized, better evaluated, better interpreted by a machine than a human mind. This is the debate that we are trying to have, right? The question that I would want to ask you is, in the relevance of this, where the machines are taking the cognitive abilities to a larger extent, I think the students in this room would want to know what are the skills that the legal education should focus, because I believe how we're going to learn, how we're going to get educated, we ought to get educated is going to change. At the same time, how we need to profess legal profession is also going to change. And let's not again ask another question and run away. Please, I want you to respond. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Imagine my plight.
This is getting better than what I thought.
I know.
It is going
Imagine my plight. Like when Sam asked me to come here, I asked him, boss, there are a bunch
to
of
your
lawyers.
mic, sir. I want to hear loud.
There are a bunch of lawyers there. And the two lawyers who are teaching other lawyers. Imagine my plight there. And because the problem is, you follow a lawyer, you are literally mesmerized by that, you get trapped into that. You don't follow the lawyer, you miss the point. So either which way you're doomed. Like, anyway, I hope I've got the point. Let me try and answer. So I think not just legal profession, across the institution called university is being questioned, right? There are some organizations like Zoho who say, I don't want graduates, I don't want anybody who is certified by this institution called university. As long as they are good, I'm okay. That's the line of argument that is coming in. Now, AI is taken it to another level where they are saying, whatever you can think and predict and other things, I will do. And I'll tell you what happened to our profession. Once upon a time, people used to hire us just to get information, right? They said, you consultants get information. Then they said, okay, information I'll get, you organize that and do that. Today, on a humorous note, there was a client who hired us and said, I want to do a DPR, detailed project report on certain issues. By the way, this is what I asked AI and it gave this report. You can take this and work on this further. So I know how every profession is being questioned. Similarly, in universities, what is the reason why we go to universities? Because they have the license to give you something called a degree, right? And that you can't get anywhere else. And why did you need that license? Because there is someone else who didn't know how to measure you. I didn't know whether you're qualified. I have no idea. If I'm a client and I come to a lawyer, I can't judge a lawyer, right? And then decide whether he or she is qualified. So I go by his credentials or her pedigree and things like that. The university helped in giving some kind of whatever recognition for that. Now, is that being questioned? Partly, not fully. Now, the second is the role that happens inside these institutions. That, in my view, is significantly changed. If inside a classroom earlier, the teacher was the epitome of knowledge, he or she decided what will be taught, how will it be taught, how long will it be taught, how will I assess, and all those things. That is changing. Now, the universities are becoming more learner-centric than teacher-centric that it used to be. And hence, the role of teacher is changing. If a teacher is going to think that he or she is going to be the one who's giving away, that's changed to say, can I question? Can I be a guide? Can I be a mentor? Can I guide those people to look at the right things? That is one.
Let me ask you an added question. I want to push you also a little bit back and see how I can get the best out of you. If you see, let me give you the example of US. The world's biggest innovations were the outcome when three important stakeholders came together: state, the industry, and the education institution, right? Now, somehow, after even 70, 80 years of our independence and our education, existence, these three tripartite is absolutely fully divided. The government will be doing its own research, the institutions are doing their own research, the industry is doing its own research. The amalgamation of the three to come together and create something or create tools for education is absolutely not that significant in India as much as it is in US. I'll give you an example. The United States at the undergraduate level is going through a full disruption as far as the undergraduate education programs are concerned. Almost all the universities in US have gone through what is called as co-op programs. Very interesting, very important. Everybody should know what is happening. I went to Northwest University with my mentor, Professor Raj. We were taking a tour. We were given a tour by a communication student who said, this is our job and internship, and our program is only 6 months on campus, and 6 months is completely work. So my learning is happening in two places. One is in the university, one is also at the work, where I'm actually learning what is actually required. Do you think, futuristically speaking, Indian universities need to also bring such an amalgamation where every year, 12 months is going to be divided into a quarter system where at least one quarter the student ought to spend meaningful time in actually being employed, working with the employer and developing the skills, and the other 2 quarters he could be with the university doing something, what he has learned and putting that to use, or asking more relevant question to university. This is a very important question. At least since the organization that you represent, I want to put this to you so that I want to understand.
What if I tell
how
you
is
it is
going to be?
already happening?
Good.
This is not futuristic and this is not US. In India, we work with universities that is already putting this to practice. There are universities where more than 50, not even 50, more than 50% of the time is spent on the Gemba or the workplace, and they work. But it is happening more around engineering. It is definitely happening in medicine. It is more happening around management
Medicine
education.
is statutory.
Right? So, but it is not happening across. Now, what's happening is, there are certain areas that are more skill oriented or supposed to be skill oriented. In those areas, they have woken up. It is already happening. Right? For one of the universities that we work, 80% is going to be with the industry, with the practitioners, and only 20% is happening. With the online AI coming, they need not even come to universities. That is also happening online. Government has gone to the extent of saying apprenticeship-based degrees are allowed. So you need not even come to the universities.
That is only on those degrees where apprenticeship is allowed. I'm talking about those degrees where it is not. Communications, journalism, media, law.
That's what I'm saying. In those places where skill is considered to be very important, like medicine, like engineering, like law perhaps, and like management education, it's happening. It's not happening across.
But skills are not necessarily those kind of skills, right?
That's what I'm saying. That is the change that I see happening, because today linguistics has labs. I need to, economics has a lab. I need to practice that somewhere if I need to be known as a professional who's doing that. Even those who are learning history are now said, go to these places of monument, learn what has happened, then write a paper saying so-and-so war was fought. The change that I see happening is, education is getting out of classrooms, right? But why a university will be important is, if I don't meet my fellow learners, if I'm not sitting with somebody who's going to guide me, education is not complete. There is a lot of psychological analysis of when do you actually learn. And one of the most important thing is your cohort.
Right.
Why do certain do? And to answer your question, Indian education has produced stalwarts. Most of the US industry relies on Indian talent, and they all studied in this so-called backward, whatever. How did that happen? Why is it that if a system is so bad, we still produce some of the world beaters from here? So it's not to blame everything to the system. There's an element of the learner, but question is valid, and I appreciate that, because most number of people don't benefit out of it. There are a set of people who benefit because they perhaps know how to get the best out of it, but overall it has not been benefiting, and hence a systemic change is warranted and is happening.
No, I agree with you. I would want to say that your interpretation that many of the stalwarts from India who got educated in India, I think we should also, for the purpose of the audience, point out rightly that their first degree was from India. That helped them to get into the best institutions for doing their second degree, right? Like, for example, yes, I agree with you. So let me come to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, this is a question that I was debating within myself, you know, and I did not find any answers, but I thought, let me ask you this question because it is important for me, and I think maybe for all the audience to understand. In the world of legal profession and also, law firm and everything, the client counseling and the handling of the clients was never an important, or maybe it was more transactional, right? Like what we are doing, how many hours we are billing. Do you think in this ideation of AI, the interaction with the clients and the way you're going to work with the clients, and law schools we were taught client counseling, but if I put that to effect in practice, neither we practice it nor we endorse it. Do you think those value propositions are going to play a huge, significant role when AI is going to emerge as a powerful tool in legal profession?
Uh, Firstly, I don't think our interaction with clients is transactional. I disagree on that.
Fine. Assume
Because
if it is, then do you think?
so I'll tell you the change that's
Sure,
happening,
sure, sure.
what I'm seeing on the
Sure.
ground. So AI gives you textbook answers, gives you a lot of errors, also lot of fantastic ideas, etc. Saves you time, you pick up ideas, etc. As long as I don't surrender my thinking process to it, what you all call cognitive surrender. As a lawyer, the minute, so you were asking Arushi the question, the client comes with the same material. You're right. The client has read the same AI stuff, which says this is the facts and this is how it's going to happen, is also predicted what will happen in this court, etc., etc. I'm seeing the same stuff. But now I have to check whether this client sitting in front of me requires the application of this textbook answer to him, for him to find a solution, for this company to find a solution. And is the solution what, so that conversation which decides whether that textbook thing which has come, which could also be erroneous, whether that is what applies to him. Second, whatever came on that textbook, I'm sure we'll get to a point of perfection, but as of today is imperfect. And the client who has used AI comes to me with, this is what has come out. It is my job. I don't forget the ethics of my practice, which is I have a duty to verify whatever I've read. I must treat AI only as an untrained junior. Maybe a junior who did not miss classes, maybe a junior who actually attended 100% attendance and therefore has that level of knowledge base, but is still untrained. If I'm going to take whatever I get from AI and apply it just like that to what the client says. Of course, I'm lucky now. The client is coming with a baseline. And I have to probably make him unlearn, saying that, in this particular nuance of your fact situation, what AI said does not apply. I may have to struggle a bit that way to explain to him that you forgot to put this particular fact into the AI. Or, AI is looking at data points where yours is a different set of facts, and therefore we need a different data point entry to get to that point in AI. But today, if you want to win your case, this is how we look at things. So, relationship with the client is one based on trust. I am a fiduciary. When I stand there before a client, I have a relationship, I have a duty to check whether a junior lawyer comes back with a research paper or an AI comes back with a research paper. I take accountability. I am the one facing the client, and I am the one filing a wakalat. I have a duty towards court, I have a duty towards my client in both cases. So as a litigator, I operate on credibility. If I go to court with a mistake that is generated on AI, or because the client thought the AI strategy was better than what I was thinking, if I make a mistake and I suffer on credibility, thereafter, in the future, I will be spending more of my arguing time showing the judge, because the judge says, show me where it is said in your papers. Credibility ensures that I move straight into my arguments and he's not questioning every value that I talk about. As far as my client is concerned, thank you. As far as my client is concerned, see, I need to see that person. I need to see, and I work with promoters of companies. We're talking of Tamil Nadu, south of Tamil Nadu, etc. It's not as simple as 2 + 2 = 4 or even 22. There's so many other considerations. These are family businesses, there are other equations in the relationship. These things, these human factors, I will consider. I must bring that. The minute I surrender that to AI, there I fail in my ethical duty. My competence has been compromised. And I think, see, because, can I take a minute more? Just because there's a I think they're all law students. So two law students, I really, my kids are young. My daughter's 25, my son is 19. And there's a lot of anxiety. Is AI disrupting everything? And we've gone through, as a professional, for instance, we've always found technology helping us. It's made life easier. Once upon a time, as a lawyer, we used to get books this thick. At 6 in the morning, we had to go through it to find out what cases are listed for that day. Slowly it moved to computer search engines. Today it comes to our phone. This is what is, so technology has also helped us, provided you remain the master. If you surrender yourself to it and you make that technology your master, then you're done for. But as youngsters, you'll always think, will I be substituted? Will I lose jobs? And it's available. You're seeing it in the tech industry. You're seeing it. People are losing jobs, etc. See, I think what I want to see in my office is I have youngsters who come with no clue about AI, and that irritates me. They can't, they take much longer. They take much longer to come back with a draft than they should in a time of AI. But I also see people who use AI and come back blind with it. That irritates me even more. So learn to use AI with responsibility, whatever the current position of AI is. I'm sure Dr. Padmanabhan is talking of a higher level cognitive AI. Let that come. Till that comes, let's talk about what is there today. Use it responsibly. And I think as youngsters, there is a lot of opportunity for you. See, otherwise you needed to go to a senior and you learn through them. You learn so much more nuances, etc. Nobody has the time, honestly, to sit and train you. AI has democratized things to that extent. There's so much material that is available for you. If you read the fact situation of your case, just show that much time. Read the facts of your matter and put it into whichever AI tool you want to use. They're giving you ideas. See it only as assisting you by giving you ideas. Now open your law book. Now open your case law. Read it and then go discuss with your senior, and you will see how well you can grow. And you can actually start talking to clients on your own. You don't need to wait for your 5-year gestation period to start meeting clients. You will slowly build the confidence. Of course, you will make mistakes. See, you have to take responsibility if you're on wakalat. So as a lawyer, I go to a senior lawyer. There is a point I want some help on. The senior gives me an idea. A senior lawyer at the bar, he gives me an idea to move things in a particular way. If I don't do my own verification and my research thereafter, I just implement that in my case and things go wrong, am I going to blame him? I have to blame myself. I'm on wakalat. So treat AI only with that level of respect or disrespect. Use it to help you.
We have 15 minutes, ma'am. I'll stop you here.
Okay.
But ma'am has made two very important points. Embrace AI, enhance AI, use AI to the extent that you would want to use, but still use your knowledge, use your understanding, and try to use AI as your assistant. Yes, she has made, when ma'am was talking, she said errors. Yes, we have some errors with the LLMs, but I can be rest assured that this are going to be free from errors in years to come, right? You're going to have a fully amazing based LLMs, which are going to give you not accurate, but amazing information. As far as law is concerned in India, we have not developed or democratized or not put such huge LLM models, like, for example, the Stanford Codex project, which has basically put the entire legal materials into one system because you need huge processing, to some extent, I will come. I'll tell you what is a comparison in terms of judges who have given the judgment, in terms of lawyers who are arguing. We have not gone into that sophistication where we can search, into our databases and do a computational analysis as to this judge, when you are sitting before him the same questions of law, how many he has said yes. We have not gone into that kind of a ratio descendant building. We can discuss that. It will come very soon. The sophistication of data analytics and computational analytics on decision making, right? But all I'm trying to tell you is two questions, and I think we have 15 minutes, and I want all of you to respond to those, questions. I will start with Arushi. Um, where do you do you think as a law firm, which you represent, is going to have an AI lawyer? And let me ask you the same question from a, educationist. Are you going to have an AI teacher? And the reason I'm going to ask you these questions are, there is a very interesting project called Lumi, which is brought by D2L, Desire to Learn. Siddharth, I can record your voice. I can use motion analytic sensors to capture the way you walk, way you speak, the way you do. Using your voice analyst, we can actually make the AI to teach with the same way that you will teach, and nowhere in the world can anybody make out who's teaching. I'm telling you that that is the sophistication of the tools, which I'm using, by the way. I would tell you. So the reason why I'm pushing you is I want to understand this from each one of you. Like, are you going to see a AI lawyer, a AI teacher, a judge in the future? I know each one of you can take either of these questions and respond, and then we will go to Q&A.
See, anything is possible in the future, right? And AI is developing at a space where I don't want to say this will never happen. It can happen tomorrow, it can happen after 2 years. It's a question, I think we have all deliberated on the point that there is merit to human involvement, human interface. Yes, you have tools, even in the film industry, even in media, you have so many tools where you can basically duplicate people, use their voice, you can use their personas. You can't figure out the differentiations, just like you're mentioning about Yumi and other tools. But the question is, when someone is in a real problem, what do they want to do? I don't think that the question is, I just want this answer. This is a transactional approach that we've been speaking about. So when you talk about a judge, today, let's take an example, a very brief example. We all use e-commerce platforms. Somewhere or the other, we have a problem. We may have a problem with a return. We may have a problem with taxi booking. We may have something or the other. If I basically raise the complaint option, I go to the chat box. Maybe the chat box answers my question sometimes, but very often than not, it keeps going into a loop. And I wait for the time personally when it says, connect me to the representative, because I now want to talk to the representative who can understand my problem, not make me write just one line to say, this is the issue and please I can issue you a refund or return. I want them to know this is my problem. I want them to resolve it. So I am also looking for that human interface, because not everything is getting solved with a yes, no. It's not a checkbox approach in my view, and a checkbox approach will not work for human civilization even in future. So yes, you may have human judges and you may have AI judges, both of which may coexist. The question is, what are the kind of problems that they are enabled to solve? That will always be that differentiation. The smaller ones, the things that take up your time, the things which are obvious, which are not so complicated, might go there. And it frees up human mind to deal with the more complex situations. But let's keep the complexity of the situation. Challenge AI. What is AI? It's only learning from you. But we are taught to create jurisprudence where it didn't exist. We are taught to develop models which didn't exist. If it didn't exist, will AI actually solve for it? I don't think right now it can solve for it. It's a very early stage. But at the same time, train human mind to become better, right? The more free time you have, the better you can do with yourself. And that's the confidence that at least I have in myself.
Okay, thank you. Well said. Siddharth, short.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to history. Okay? No, that's because history is instructive. History is instructive.
He is going back to history means he's going back to deception. Okay.
This debate, in my opinion, would not happen if in 1991 the United States had collapsed instead of the Soviet Union. The prevailing philosophy today is capitalist, is laissez-faire. Yes, you may want to call me a Marxist. I'd urge all students here to go back and read Karl Marx, right? And that book is instructive for the frame of analysis it provides. You may completely disagree. Incidentally, I was in law school, I got caught up. We went for a rally and I actually signed up. I have it somewhere in the deep recesses of my cupboard. I actually have a card which says Communist Party of India Marxist member. Okay. Now, the point I'm making is this. The simple point is the love of the teaching of the law is not entirely in the skills that you earn. Yeah, you have to learn empathy. You have to learn the idea that there are certain subjects like jurisprudence which are critical. You have to understand Raz, you need to understand Fuller, Kant, all of them. Those are people that inspire you. And let's go back, I met a lawyer at the Jindal event, actually, now senior advocate of the Supreme Court, who said, you are sitting in a state where you talk of jurisprudence. I will come and teach. I've actually contacted him. He says, I will come and teach you, do some courses on the principles of the Tirukural that is important for the understanding of the law, right? Which I think is important. We have to look at this as more than, am I doing faster at this? Am I doing better at this, right? I know I might be sounding romantic, right? But
No, nowhere close to romantic. No.
right? But I think the idea that a law education is only about skills we are doing ourselves an injustice, right?
I agree. I agree your
Yeah.
optimism. But at the end of the day, we are all preparing the lawyers to go to the law firms and learn.
No, but I'll
becoming
tell you, I
transactional
will
lawyers.
end with this.
The
The world, as
I-
Dr.
Richa is shaking her head. I will ask a tough question to her also.
Justice Wilson was talking about the environmental Armageddon that we are facing, right? If we don't start to address those critical issues, like as Mahatma Gandhi said, that if India starts to consume like the West, we will strip the world bare like locusts. Right?
Okay, heard you. Very clear.
Okay,
Smita?
thank you. I can go on because let me end by saying this:
the
a good communist never dies; he simply fades away.
I am so sorry. I'm a capitalist sitting here. I'm a utilitarianist, capitalist, whatever you want to call me. But Smita.
I think I just want to bring attention to what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? And I'm particularly answering the question of whether an AI judge will ever exist. As contrary to popular opinion, most judges perform more than 100% of their capacity. Yes. And what that means is that the number of cases that are filed on a daily basis and the number of cases that are disposed, are much higher. So what does that really tell us, right? I was doing a pilot with the Telangana High Court, and one of the registrars there, and for those of you who may not know, a registrar inside an Indian court system is usually a district court judge who's now performing an administrative function of ensuring that the court runs smoothly. So this registrar in Telangana High Court said that an under trial prisoner who's probably undergoing, let's say, a bail hearing, has to wait not for the bail hearing to take place, right? The judge will hear the matter, see that it is actually quite time sensitive and give a hearing. But for that matter to reach him, it takes about a week, which is a complete breakdown of justice because it requires that it be done within 24 hours. And the blockage point, right? It took me a good 2.5 weeks, a good about 15 to 20 days to identify what in that process was broken. I went and sat with each member of the filing team, the scrutiny team, the clerks, the PS, the reader, the steno, and I finally understood that the breakage point was at the scrutiny level. The scrutiny team is identifying that the cases that are filed, whether they are as per order or not. And they have a massive list, by the way. They have 40 to 50 categories or criteria basis which they have to determine that the document is legal, so to speak. And once I was going through that checklist, there are such bogus categories, such that can be actually checked for by an AI within 15 minutes. And today in Karnataka High Court, for example, we have created a system that within 15 minutes, we brought down that list from 50 to 8. Only 8 categories made sense. The rest, we were able to tell the advocate to cure the defects and only then submit. Today, the process that was taking under trial prisoners 3 days, 1 week, is now taking half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. So I don't think we need an AI judge because that would not be solving the problem. You can have an AI judge, sure. But what would really solve the problem is having these incremental process-related reimaginations and transformations.
Thank you, Smita. But let me tell you, I think as a students of law, I think you should also test this. We all have studied one of the biggest case studies called the Spellation Explorers. If you have not studied, you should go and study. The Spellation Explorer case is a case study which is actually reported in Harvard Law Review. And the original judgment of this case study, it's a case study, hypothetical case study, was written by 6 judges. And then it converted to 13 judges, decision. All of them are hypothetical, they don't exist in real, but they are coming and giving out a decision. So what the experimentation I'm doing at my university is, I have identified 6 students who are going to lead the effect of taking 8 LLMs, the world's biggest LLMs, and asking them to write a judgment for Spellation Explorer. And the test that I'm going to do for the next AI report is whether all the AI-based LLMs are going to arrive at a similar decision making, or they're going to differ in terms of what I call as the Spellation Explorer case study. Because it is going to be very interesting. I think we should test it and we should try it, but I'm trying it at my own university level, asking a bunch of students to take this case study and asking to write a 14th judge decision, which will be a AI judge decision. The reason why I'm doing this is we have to understand if these are the 14 decisions or 13 decisions that are existing, and if you put all this knowledge to the AI, is AI going to come out with a new solution for this existing problem? The entire Spellation Explorer is your legal or research, legal methodology class 101 in Harvard. One full semester, you will be studying Spellation Explorer, LO1, as a legal methodology class in Harvard. So it will be very interesting to see how it comes, and then we can build case materials around that, saying how AI judge is behaving, and then test it over a period of time to other judgments. It could be a good experimentation. Probably I would want to collaborate with you and see how we can test this and probably give that information to students how we can go about doing it. And I encourage students to think such modules and do your own research projects to see how AI as a judge could behave. You can really test this. But thank you. Yes, sir.
So when it comes to AI in educational institutions, it's already happening. There's no question of hypothetical stuff. There are AI teachers, there are AI universities. The point to ask instead is, do you need them? And today, take India for example, the number of universities that we need, number of educational institutions that we need, the number of teachers that we need inside the institution, the various things that we need more people. So AI can only augment. It's like, taking a parallel example, has AI replaced the teller clerks in a bank? Of course they have. You go to a bank, you don't see humans of that kind. I don't know, there are so many youngsters here. How many of you know that there is something called a branch of a bank? When did any of you go to a bank's branch? Not even a single person. The 10 years back, the people used to have excuses to go to the branch. It's all replaced by technology in some form. But have bankers gone out of job? Or has banks stopped recruiting people? They recruit, they do better jobs, and still banks are a lot more efficient, and we need all of them. It's not as if number of banks have reduced as well. That is different. Okay, that's not it. My point is, I think AI is going to generate more teachers. There are going to be more, not just the teaching staff, but the other staff also. There are going to be AI universities. This is only going to make the teachers, the human teachers, do different stuff, become a lot more efficient, become a lot more relevant, and the universities also are going to be a lot more relevant because certain things that they could be done otherwise would be taken over by AI, both in terms of quality and in terms of quantity.
Okay, thank you. Last 2 minutes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I'll pick the AI judge thing.
AI judge. Okay.
Yes, because, and it is sector specific. It's only because it's legal system, because AI across regulation is different. But for the justice system and the Indian justice system, see, justice administration is different from justice dispensation. Justice administration, as she says, I think we cannot afford to say no to any technology, whatever it is, because we certainly have a lot of shortfalls and we need to fix that. As far as justice dispensation is concerned, I understand AI itself has its own biases, etc., and all that y'all are dealing with. And the idea of anything coming out from a machine is just seen as pure maths and perfect, etc., automation bias. I understand that. But if we can use AI to fix biases in even judgments, in terms of education, I'm not saying replace judges simply because I know our Indian judges cannot be replaced. They're not going to give up their jobs. It's a decision they will make. And therefore, but if we can use it in education of our judicial officers, etc., to identify biases, to identify inconsistencies, and ensure we have a more constitutional delivery of the justice system, more equality, less discrimination, etc., more access to those who require access. I think we cannot afford the luxury of saying no to AI. There is regulation required, but not in this sector. We need to use it a lot more.
Okay, Smita.
One last point, because you said that. Just last week, I was doing a training at the Delhi Judicial Academy for 70 judicial officers, and not just incoming officers, but principal district judges and so on. And most judges had only one question, which is, can you please tell me what is a good prompt? How do I make AI give me the answer I want? So that is what judges are thinking today.
Okay.
So, let me also add, see, the digital twins
20
are
seconds,
already
20
happening.
seconds, 20
Digital twins are already happening. You have a digital twin of an individual, digital twin of universities that are happening. So the question is hypothetical.
Okay. Okay. I have to. I will request the panelists to go and take the questions in a social coffee break. But I think I have to call it a day. I want to congratulate all the panel speakers for this. Give them a round of applause. I can only say that I survived and I passed. So let me invite Professor Raj to come and honor the panel speakers today. Yes, ma'am. You can take over from here. Thanks.
Thank you, panelists. It was very engaging session. I would like to request Professor Raj and Professor Ramanujam to facilitate Ms. Elizabeth Sheshadri, partner Iyer and Thomas. Ms. Narayanam Ramaswamy, National Leader, Education and Skill Development, Government and Public Services, KPMG India. Ms. Swati Gupta, Director, Jhana. Professor Siddharth Raja, Executive Dean, Vinayaka Missions Law School. And Ms. Arushi Jain, Partner, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. I request you to please be seated. We have the next panel starting in the next 2 minutes. There is no break. Sorry.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I would request you to please settle down. We are about to begin the third session. Good afternoon, everyone. Please settle down. We are about to begin the third session. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm aware this is a post-lunch session. We have not had the privilege of a coffee or a tea. Traditionally, the graveyard for attention, and where even the most compelling submissions can rule against biology. So we can't help it. But I promise this. I'll promise we'll keep this brief. Perhaps slightly provocative session two. It's a session on AI and the transformation of the legal profession. We often speak of artificial intelligence as a tool, but increasingly it behaves less like a tool and more like a participant in the legal process, drafting, analyzing, advising, sometimes even predicting the entire process. If Suits was made today, Harvey Specter would be competing with the AI and not essentially with Lewis Litt in that case. So the real question before us today is not whether AI will enter the legal profession, it already has, but how it will reorder the power dynamics, expertise, and judgment within it. So that is what this panel is all about. We are fortunate to have with us an exceptional set of panelists, Mr. Prabhu Arun Kumar, Mr. Rohan K. George, Ms. Srimati Shivashankar, Dr. Vinod Surana, and Mr. Dhruv Suri, each bringing a distinct perspective from the practice industry and contribute their individual expertise to the conversation. So before we finally proceed with the discussion, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this session, Mr. Anthony R. Julian. He's a litigator and an arbitrator counsel based in Chennai and New Delhi. He practices regularly before the NCLT, the NCLT, different arbitral tribunals, and the Supreme Court. He holds an LLB from the University College in London and an LLM in international arbitration from the Queen Mary University of London. Beyond his expertise, he's also the convener for the steering committee of Center for Justice Through Technology, a co-organizer for this event, and the name itself is coined by Mr. Anthony himself. So it is with honor that I present to you Mr. Anthony R. Julian to moderate this session. Anthony, please join us.
Thank you. I'd like to invite my co-panelists, please, Mr. Rohan George, Srimati Shivshankar, Dhruv Suri, and Mr. Prabhu, please. So we have a very stellar panel here. All practitioners, law practitioners, most of us, except for one. And so let me briefly introduce our speakers today. So Srimati Shivshankar is the corporate vice president and global head of EdTech business at HCL Technologies. She leads the company's EdTech services and delivers talent transformation, learning, and assessment solutions for enterprises and institutions. She has over 25 years of experience in business and technology leadership. She has held multiple senior roles at HCL, including architecting the New Vistas program for global talent hubs, as well as leading diversity, sustainability, and CSR initiatives through HCL Foundation and HCL Grant. She's recognized as a top 25 woman leader in consulting and a Weequal winner in business transformation. She now focuses on scaling AI-driven education and skills platforms that enable workforce mobility and future-ready learning across geographies. Please let's give her a round of applause. And next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Prabhu Mukund Arun Kumar. He's a senior standing counsel for the Income Tax Department at the Madras High Court. And he regularly appears in direct tax matters, including writ petitions and appeal, and has acted as lead counsel in several reported judgments in the Madras High Court. He has nearly 25 years standing at the bar. He's an alumnus of Loyola College, Presidency College, and the Madras Law College. And in addition to tax-specific work, he has significant experience in general civil and writ litigation before the Madras High Court and various courts in Chennai, having appeared in a wide range of statutory and administrative law matters with a strong grounding in constitutional, education, taxation, and administrative law issues. And next, we have Mr. Rohan George, the founder of AdIdem. a Chennai and Bangalore-based legal AI company that is building the legal knowledge infrastructure for rapidly scaling companies. Prior to Ad Item, he was an equity partner at Samvad Partners, a pan-India firm, where he led the intellectual property practice at the Chennai office, handling complex IP technology, data privacy, and commercial disputes matters. With over 2 decades of practice, Rohan has appeared in landmark cases on software patentability and digital privacy, and has also worked on policy projects with Indian ministries and international bodies such as UNCTAD. Trained at Columbia Law School and Nalsa University, he now focuses on building institutional legal memory for companies through AI and knowledge management platforms at Aditum. And finally, we have Mr. Dhruv Suri. He's a partner at PSA Legal, a full-service firm headquartered in New Delhi, where he heads the firm's technology, media, and telecommunications and disputes practice. He specializes in technology laws, data privacy, AI governance and regulatory strategy, and technology-related disputes. At PSA, he advises on privacy framework compliance, AI model governance and risk, intellectual property issues, and high value commercial contracts with additional experience in corporate and foreign exchange laws, labor and employment, and regulatory investigations. Beyond the firm, he serves on the advisory board of Content Lens AI, shaping policy on AI, content authenticity, and data governance, and advises GoTrust on the ethical and compliant use of technology for personal data processing. Widely recognized as one of India's leading tech law practitioners, by the India Business Law Journal, named him the future legal leader, and Asian Legal Business consistently ranked him among Asia's super 50 TMT lawyers and India's super lawyers. He holds an LLM from Columbia University, New York, and regularly speaks and writes on data, AI, and regulatory issues shaping the future of business and technology. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. So the theme of today's discussion of this specific panel is, how the effect that AI has on the legal profession. Now, AI is not science fiction anymore. I mean, the effect is it has had, especially in the last 5 years, I think is for all of us to see, right? I mean, it's become very much part of our legal workflow. I mean, I myself swear by Perplexity. I use it very often, although I wouldn't always be open enough to admit it to clients, but there it is. I do use it quite often. And and the use is now the impact on litigation workflow, especially. I mean, I'm a litigation and disputes practitioner, so that's where I relate to it more. So so the focus has now moved of AI on the idea is that now a lot of the grunt work, so to speak, that a lawyer does usually of analyzing documents, a lot of that is now you can do it using AI tools. So where does a lawyer come in? Your focus then shifts to the larger strategy, the legal strategy that a lawyer does. And of course, there's a larger question of where do you put professional responsibility and where do ethics come in, right? And of course, that's a conversation that's still ongoing. And then that leads to the other conversation around what are the skill sets that lawyers in training, which I think is relevant to a lot of us here, a lot of the young students here, that what are the skill sets that you need to develop as lawyers in training so that you can use these tools to become better lawyers, better lawyers than all of us here, right? So on that question, on that note, I'd like to put the first question to Srimati. So, ma'am, so the question I'd like to ask you is, especially since you head legal technology and AI at HCL, how do you see legal technology reshaping, the structure of legal services industry? Because at the end of the day, lawyers do provide services, and it is a services-based profession. So, how do you see that being affected by technology?
Thank you, Anthony. Before I get started, I want to wear two hats today. One is that of a beneficiary, because I also receive legal services as a common woman and a common man in this country. The second is as a tech professional who is shaping or providing a whole lot of AI solutions and AI products for legal services. Let me wear my first hat, and I was listening to my previous debate, and I want to tell you I'm feeling very scared. I'm feeling extremely concerned that lawyers have to talk about AI judge and trying to say that AI is going to solve problems. I think The term solving a problem through AI itself is wrong. I want you to keep in mind. And please, heaven's sake, as lawyers, as future judges, don't ever say that you're going to solve world problems through an AI. AI is your assistant, it's your slave. It's not autonomous. You're the decision maker. We come to lawyers because you will solve my problems. You will listen to my sentiments. Half of my problem gets solved when my lawyer smiles and says, I'll take care of the case. I mean, that's where it rests. So, can you all please ensure that, as budding lawyers and the lawyers in the room, that AI is a technology? AI is not an emotionally intelligent human being like I like to see in my lawyers. So, the previous conversations were all about replacing lawyers, replacing advocates. Oh, can I have an AI judge? Seriously? As a common man, I want to see a Major Sundarajan there, an Amitabh Bachchan there, our own, Raj there debating with all his dramatics. And don't you want those emotions? Don't you want those expressions? Don't you want debates? Some professions are meant to have dramatics. You need to be the drama kings and drama queens. I pay money for a drama queen who will go and put all the expression there and say, Srimati's case will win. What she says is right. She is guilt free. She will look at the judge face and say, Sir, look at Srimati's eyes. Is it not compassionate? Don't you want to be with her and win the case for her? That's a lawyer. That's what we need. So, can we give ourselves a good round of applause? We are going to be brilliant lawyers and we are not going to be replaced. I don't want to. Just imagine, go there. Yeah, you want a case? Okay, I will give you. Seriously? We don't want such lawyers or advocates. The second was there was a conversation around education, and I have to give you that. Yes, Professor Pad did ask, are we going to have internships? And Siddharth, you were also listening to it, and there were no answers. I want to tell you guys, globally, there are some amazing simulators today. We have court simulators. We have court simulations. That's what Meta is doing today. Even I can have my own avatar called Lawyer Srimati. I may not even be a lawyer, but I can go there and I can debate with some brilliant minds there and learn law. So there are technology which are actually enabling your apprenticeship in terms of simulators. You think a pilot will go and waste a gasoline for 2,000 hours before he becomes a pilot? I mean, I'm talking about a plane pilot. No way. They do have simulators. So there are a bunch of brilliant simulators coming. Just watch out. You have to wait for a few more years. Now, sir, I'll come back to my second hat, which is very important. As a techie who is working around the AI products for lawyers, for legal services. I was just debating with somebody yesterday as to, how the future of legal is going to look like. I have a very strong feeling that in the past, lawyers used to bill by the hour. I think in future, lawyers are going to bill by the number of judgments because you are going to have AI to assist you. But there are a few things around technology that I want to be cautious of. Number one, I think all of you in this room, 99.99% of you are using any of your AI engines for research to get evidences, to get case studies, and you believe that they're all validated and verified. I can vouch, though my earlier moderator said we have brilliant LLMs. It's only a fascinating assumption that they're all brilliant LLMs. Even when you go and use those LLMs, it says some lawyer in that LLM company has actually put a disclaimer, do not trust what I am saying. But judges and lawyers in this room are saying that I'm referring that for my case studies. So I think there is a huge point on how you're going to verify and validate. So future technology is all going to be around verification and validation and credentialing of what is being given to you as evidences. Whether, however, you can use to a large extent for your documentation, your litigation points, and so on. But where is future of technology is going to be? I'll give you two interesting insights. One for upping your revenue. If you're running your legal business, service business, it will also start telling you how you can do unique billing methods. Today you have come with a very structured time and material billing. In future, you'll have multiple ways of billing your legal services. Think about it. That's what is evolving with technology. Second is what is most important is predictable analysis, predictability. A lot of statistics, a lot of modeling actually says, will you really win this case or not? What is your percentage? What is that you need to build more to win such cases? So you are going to have a lot of predictable cues coming in. But there is the catch. You don't want lawyers to hallucinate, but AI still is hallucinating. Let me tell you, I work with almost all the LLMs. There are two LLMs who are very friendly with me, Sam, today. Very friendly. In fact, when I go and ask her, I call her. I don't call him, I think because it's intelligent. So I just call her and then I tell her, I ask some very abrupt question someday in the morning. And then the AI asks me, Srimati, are you okay? Can you believe it? An AI asking me, are you okay? Because this is not the way you normally prompt me. So, which means some part of sentiments and some part of Srimati profiling is happening inside the AI. So, all this cognitive, we are feeding into the AI. So, beware and beware. So, as much as you want it to assist you, you should also know how much of your advocate personality is that you want to pass. Someone was telling me AI technology is evolving so fast, you have no control. Now, AI is evolving fast. Technology, we don't invest so much in technology and building algorithms every day, but AI is evolving faster. The second major point, other than hallucination, is that you are sitting on a clutter of data today. Tomorrow, if you decide to use AI technology in your legal services, first you need to spend on how you want to structure your data. That structuring data is where your intelligence is. Lawyers are known for structuring your analysis. If you can pass that to the tool, it will be fantastic. So, these are the two parts I wanted to say. One is let us not even think that AI is going to replace anything for that matter, because we want lawyers and we want those drama going on in the courtrooms. And the second is that when you look at it, you have multiple tools. Technology will give you different billing, different way to start analyzing, different ways to build your business and structures and how to really predict your outcomes. But please spend a lot of time on validation, verifications, and finally, most important is structure your data points there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those insights. So I think it's a good point that you raised, that it's become so much part of our daily life that it's able to even understand new changes in your mood or just the way you prompt it. Okay, but on that, there is also another reality that uh, lot of lawyers don't have. I wouldn't say don't have access, but rather they don't want to use AI because law practitioners specifically are a very conservative bunch when it comes to adopting technology. There's always pushback on any new technology that is they're told to adopt. There's always pushback. I mean, even for something like e-filing, there is always pushback. Right? Even recently, there was some. So, so on that note, I mean, I'd like to put a question to Prabhu sir on this. There is, as much as AI tools are becoming more and more well used, do you think there will be a problem of inequalities where, between the haves on have-nots, so to speak, of AI tools? How do you see that, playing out?
I may not see as a have and have nots. You have tools which are free. So there is no question of haves and have nots. Now, how are you going to use these tools? That's exactly what Madam was trying to tell. How do you use these tools for the particular purpose for what you require? So there are two things in which you can look at it. One is you have a huge amount of data which is there in the market. Now, whether you're going to use the entire data for your analysis is one question. or you're going to choose something specific for your analysis. These are the two things which you'll have to look at, which has to be looked into the structured formation of information which you want to get. So, understanding as to what is to be prompted is first. So that as students today now, this has happened in codings. In coding, what has happened is today there is a complaint saying that these coders does not have a knowledge as the earlier coders had, because in 5 minutes the coding is done. And more of it is used for the next level of understanding and you burn out. That was the latest article which came up in Economic Times just 3 days back, which says that you burn out. Same thing applies here to the legal profession, where you start using it. I will give you an example and just explain it. For example, when you want to file a second appeal, earlier when you used to file second appeal in the Madras High Court, we have 90 days limitation. So what we will usually do is, we'll file it for limitation on a particular day and get it returned, and then we'll represent it. By this AI tool which we use, we need not file it on a last day to get it returned, whereas we can file it incomplete. If you have 15 cases of second appeal which you have to file, you can file all these 15 cases in time, with precision, and with no mistakes. Earlier, this would be done by a junior. That is what the juniors have to do now today. They will have to learn this technology, understand how you will have to fix it. You will have a plaint, you will have a written statement, you will have the evidence which will be there, and all these things have to be put into, and see what is the substantial question of law which you will have to derive at. Now, therefore, structuring yourself into feeding or prompting the AI to give you an output is the first step. Next, you'll have to see whether the output which is given can take you to the next step. So that is where, as students who come up as first entering into a law firm or as a law advocate's office, they will have to first understand, they will have to be abreast about what is the law is first. Only if they are abreast about what the law is, they will understand as to what the AI has thrown up to you. Unless and until you don't understand what the AI has thrown up to you, you cannot today say that the AI is going to take the job of a junior, or there is going to be inequalities. Basically, it squares down to one thing, that you will have to know what you are doing. Unless and until that is there, the prompting is not proper. When the prompting is not proper, your throwing up from the AI is also not proper, because it has hallucination. There is a creditability check on that. So all these things matters, whether it is a second appeal, whether it is a tax litigation. What it can help you out is, for example, if you have to read about 100 judgments for a case, the analysis to be thrown up for the 100 cases will be easy through an AI process. One. The second thing is the facts. For example, Padma Sundara, the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court, says a small difference in facts makes a world of difference. So that factual analysis of these judgments can be fed into the AI to tell what is the difference in these facts, span this 100 judgments which I'm going to use. Once you understand this, then your job of squaring it down to understand what you are going to put as a substantial question of law, and whether for this substantial question of law, whether already a judgment is there. So this is how the shaping of the legal profession will take place. What we were doing earlier on reading the books by opening it, today you will have to structure yourself by understanding what the law is. The prompting will be the first step, and for the prompt, you will have to do some exercise. Again, I will say, for the prompting also, you have another AI model where you can get a prompt from that and feed it into the next as a prompt and get an answer for it. So my personal opinion will be, there will be no inequalities, but you will have to adapt yourself as to how you use the system, how you use a technology. See, for example, the Gen X or the Gen Z generation and the people who are at back, the intermediary will be a menu-driven pattern. So when we have a menu-driven pattern or a prompt-driven pattern, what is your prompt is the question. Now we are not on a menu-driven pattern. When we say about prompt-driven pattern, then what is your prompt going to be and how we are going to. So the prompt becomes very important, and for which you need a basic understanding of it. You can also say there are generative AIs where I upload a plaint, where I upload a written statement, where I upload the evidence, and it throws up what I want. But validation has to be done by you. Because the next question comes, who will be responsible for it? The responsibility will lie only on the advocate. And the person who is going to see the bar counsel will be only the advocate and not the AI tool which is going to give you throw up informations. So in my opinion, I will personally say that transformation takes place, but we'll have to adapt to the transformation. Once we adapt ourselves to the transformation, then we will know where exactly we will place ourselves. And the building time, as madam said, not on judgments. The building time will be on more on strategy, the more on analysis. So your building time will still be the same. Probably for what we were doing 80% earlier, we will now reduce it to 10%. And the 90% or the 80% work will be on more strategizing and analyzing.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to add one. You asked why there is hesitancy in adopting AI, especially among the legal. See, now AI is, one is about all the tools available, Anthony. The other one is about how well it's even adopted in worldwide industries. So if you look at the adoption pattern, there's a lot. Even if you will hear this from almost every other person who's into this field, in the tech field. The adoption part is very much in nascent stage, right? So to a large extent, we focus on where operations productivity is today. So in most of the large organizations worldwide, if you ask them where have you invested in AI, they will say to improve our operations. The second could be customer experience, or it could be where there could be a defined productivity through throughput. Input hasn't changed, but the throughput has changed, right? So that's where we have started building case study. So my humble submission is to the lawyer, to the legal fraternity, if you start publishing successful case studies, then the adoption will be faster. And that's what we are trying to do with the other industries.
That's actually a very interesting point. So actually, that also sort of leads to the next theme on how can these AI tools be used by, because majority of the Indian legal industry is run by solo practitioners and very small legal teams. We don't have the big law firm culture as they do in most of other jurisdictions. So I'd like to ask Rohan, how do you see these tools, act as a force multiplier for smaller team, even for solo practitioners?
Thank you, Anthony. Just before and actually as a necessary prelude to what I say, I'd like to respond to a few points you raised here, ma'am. I think one thing which is important to recognize is that very often when all of us think of a lawyer, we're visualizing someone in robes and a gown and a band in a court or a tribunal. If we actually look at the demographics of the legal profession, you will find, less so in India, but still very significantly, 40 to 50% of the people with a legal degree are in an office in front of a desk as part of a commercial role of some kind or the other. Their personal charisma did not necessarily come into the picture, and I think it's very important that that lawyers are the human endpoint for bringing justice to a person before the court. But very often, a lawyer is just the invisible grease between the wheels of a machine, basically, trying to make things move faster and more efficiently and safely. In that context, then, in that role which AI plays, I completely agree. AI should not be seen as a technology of replacement. It is a technology of augmentation. But at the same time, this is a harsh reality. Any augmentation of capacity reduces the need for additional capacity. So it is not a binary of replace versus not replace. It is a question that when an organization needs 50 lawyers to manually review a group of compliance documentation, now they will need 20. Where will those 30 go? That's the question. Okay. And I'll address those 2 points because that ties in very closely to now what you asked me, Anthony, because this is something which concerns me. As somebody who is building, I have a commercial interest in making sure that I have a return on investment. I am focused, therefore, just being very honest, on companies which are able to provide me that return on investment. I feel concerned because there are not too many tools which are being created for solo practitioners, small firms, and lawyers. But what's inspirational to me actually, and this is also something I wanted to say, it's amazing the level of adoption and not just adoption, but actual creation with AI that legal practitioners are developing worldwide. For all of you who are students here, I would like to give you just a small bit of homework. Go and check out a few websites. Vibecode.law, law, Lawvable, that's the second one. And the third one is called Legal Quants. These are all websites which are created by lawyers building their own software and AI tools. Amazingly. Okay, these are all forums where people are putting out tools they created themselves. Okay, and they are building them on the top of general purpose AI frameworks like Claude and such like. So I think that there is a potential where, yes, large enterprise use cases will actually reduce capacity, and it is concerning. But at the same time, there's a huge amount of potential that your 2 to 5-person office suddenly becomes capable of handling the work that a 20-person office could have been capable of handling. And I think what will be even more interesting is the equalizer, because your 1,000-person firm, which could earlier afford to work on an hourly billing model, is now having its lunch eaten by that 5-person firm who is providing not hourly based billing, outcome based billing. You want this agreement drafted? Here's your flat fee. It's going to be done for you. I know a lot of law offices, and including the office I used to work with, would work on a version of a flat fee billing, but there was always hourly billing in the back of our head to inform that calculation. Now it is outcome alone. The time is not the constraint in building the product. So then what do lawyers need to do? That's the biggest concern I have. I quite agree with you, sir, on your point, which is that unless lawyers know what expertise to bring to the tool, then they are not going to get anything worthwhile out of it, A. And B, most importantly, they will not grow. It is not possible for them to grow. It's like learning to walk with crutches from the time when you're a child versus learning to walk at some point later on and using something to augment your ability to walk. So I think that the potential for the legal profession, and especially solo and small firms, to engage with AI, and if they engage with it as something which can augment their internal capacities to compete with bigger players, is immense, and I am excited most about that as a person who's from the legal profession.
Great. Okay. But I think that, yeah, so I see your point, how it can be used as a force multiplier, and how, smaller firms can really outmatch much larger teams. And I think that's already happening in many places. So, but I guess there is also a larger question here. So these smaller teams, when they're so heavily reliant on these AI tools, so there has to be what are the guardrails in place, right?
Yeah.
So this was actually a question that I wanted to, I mean, you're welcome to answer as well.
I'm so
Dhruv
sorry.
as well. But, especially because in fact, we were just having a conversation earlier also, and you was telling me how they do have some good practices in their firm that they have started using on how to ensure that, there is a verification process. So I was actually curious to know more about that. And please, Rohan, I'd like you also to chip in on that later on.
So, thanks, Anthony, and I think fantastic points, Rohan. I just want to sort of comment and maybe take that conversation a little forward in terms of what Rohan was saying. Right? If you look at how the legal profession and technology have evolved, there was a time when we had pure play litigators in the market. We had physical AIR books that we used to open and look for judgments when we used to appear before court. That sort of transitioned to the Manupatras and the SCCs and the Westlaws coming in. And to some extent, it democratized the legal practice, right? Where if there was a young lawyer sitting in, say, a tier 2, tier 3 city, probably didn't have access to those expensive books, he could now take one of those Manupatra subscriptions and get access to abundant research. AI, in some sense, is that sort of moment for the legal profession as well, right? It's further democratizing the legal profession. So in that sense, I think it is going to create that level playing field that you were talking about to whatever extent, right? I mean, obviously, it's an unfair world, but to whatever extent it can, it will certainly allow lawyers from across practices, across cities, across I would say, size and scales that on which they operate to get access to information, to get access to right or wrong. I mean, we've discussed what the problems with AI are. And similarly, right? So, and if you think of how path breaking access to AI for a lot of or the larger legal community is, and I always sort of quote this example when track changes had come in Microsoft Word. We were all typing, and suddenly this concept of track changes came, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is one of those eureka moments that lawyers are going through because." Now you can actually, exactly, and comments. Now you can actually show what all edits you need to do, and multiple people can review the same documents. You can suddenly put comments, and it was making the life journey of a document much simpler. And again, I think AI is that moment in the legal profession where it's going to transform, hopefully for the better, in the manner in which we practice. Now, in terms of good practices and in terms of how you should actually look at adopting this uh, in law firms, as an individual, in companies, look, it's it's a lot of hit and miss right now. Okay, I think the first challenge has always been of our ability to embrace and acknowledge that we use AI. Because if you think about it, how many juniors in our respective law firms would very openly feel comfortable coming and telling you that a draft was created using AI on which they then worked further, right? So there's a little bit of taboo I still think that exists in terms of acknowledging and embracing that AI has been used. So I think that is something we need to get over. And I was narrating this story where I personally was on a call and ended up using one of these AI tools to quickly, draft a clause. And I'm like, hey, suddenly it's actually a pretty perfect clause. And I shared it on the chat of that team's call. And the general counsel and the legal teams on the other side were like, hey, you know what? This is actually great. Maybe we should adopt it. And I was so embarrassed to admit that I actually created this on one of these tools, while being on that call, right? But this was a year ago, and I think technology has evolved so much more. Our ability to embrace and acknowledge the usage of AI in our organizations is a lot more. But have we cracked the code? Do we know exactly what kind of systems, processes we need to put in place? Perhaps not. Because even today, when I'm sending engagement letters to clients, right? Some of the larger clients, some of the more regulated entities are coming back and saying, hey, you know what? You cannot use our data, our content on any third-party AI tool, right? You can't do that. Because how that's going to be used, nobody knows, right? We can ask the right questions. Whenever you onboard a vendor, whenever you deploy your client data on any third-party platform, if you're formally taking an enterprise version, you can of course ask the right questions. Hey, like make sure that our data is not used for training your models. Make sure that the data is not shared. It doesn't go outside India if it's a regulated entity. You can do an on-prem deployment of the tool. So you can put systems in place to ensure that you provide as much comfort as you can to your client. But do you still really know what's going on and are able to give that comfort to the client? Probably not. And how do you then also ensure that some of the junior people working in your team are not actually putting some of these documents on a chat GPT or on a Claude to then say, hey, you know what, like I want to find out whether this agreement covers everything or whether there is inherent contradiction in terms of how this document is drafted. And things like that are very scary, right? If lawyers do that without understanding the nuances of what potentially they are causing or doing, in terms of confidentiality exposure, in terms of the client coming down heavily on you and saying that, look, I told you not to do this. Why has this happened? So as a firm, as an organization, I think being able to clearly communicate how AI should be used becomes very important. You can have written policies. I mean, we are not a 200 lawyer law firm where we've felt the need to actually document a policy right now. But I mean, there are guidelines that we've prepared, circulated. But more than that, it's conversation. It's actually being able to talk to them very clearly in terms of the do's and don'ts and clearly explaining the risks, what's at stake, if you mess up. Should you stop using it? Probably not. I mean, today, if you say that there's a generation of lawyers that's going to come in that's not going to adopt this technology, that's not going to happen. Is AI good? 100%, right? It's today, if you need to draft a contract from scratch without putting in confidential data, you want a presentation to be made, you want something to be reviewed which doesn't have sensitive content, it's fantastic. You'll probably be able to get about 90-95% of your answers. But just in terms of the sensitivities around how your team needs to use it, I think conversation is what is really going to solve the problem.
You wanted to share something as well about this?
No, I'm just so sorry I butted in earlier, but I do want to mention one thing which I think Dhruv has already amply pointed out. The ultimate guardrail is human judgment.
Right.
And something, I mean, I also teach to some extent, lawyers about practical usage of AI tools. And one thing I keep telling people is we have a mistake where we always think in binaries. Either you do the work fully manually or you trust entirely to AI. No, don't expect 8 hours of work to be compressed into half an hour. Be satisfied that 8 hours of work is being compressed into an hour and a half, where the machine spits out something in 20 minutes. Great. Now you spend the next 1.5 hours sitting and reviewing what it spat out because that's your job now. You are the last mile. You are the person who's going to be potentially disbarred. So you take, or fired, you take ownership. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
And just to add to what Rohan is saying, right? The way AI has also progressed. A year back, if you were using tools which sort of compressed your task in 30 into 30 minutes, and then you spent like 3 hours or 2 hours reviewing it, that 2 hour review has also now significantly gone down. So that's also something we need to acknowledge, right? Where if you were again, simple things, right? Like when I was talking about how we were using a tool, a third-party tool, where my team uploaded litigation documents and asked it to come up with questions for a cross. And it was actually able to, maybe with about 70-80% accuracy, come up with very strategic questions to be asked in a cross-examination, which for us was, of course, blowing our mind in terms of, okay, how has a tool actually populated this? And then, of course, begs the other more ethical question that I think most lawyers and law firms are staying away from it. No, not just in terms of how you use, whether the benefit of this speedy result gets passed on to your client in terms of billing, right? Because at the end of the day, if this was a task that ordinarily I would have done in over 2 days or 3 days, and now I have managed to do it within like 30 minutes plus like 2 more hours of review, like, do I now pass on this benefit of this to my client or not?
There are things that's concerning when I hear this, especially guardrails. So I want to be a little transparent because lawyer by profession is all about transparency, right? First of all, when he said he is uploading the litigation document into an AI tool itself is concerning. You could have taken the consent of whoever your client. I'm not worried about it. But when you read most of the tools, it also takes consent from you. There are two types of consent. I'm sure you have seen that. One is, can I, privacy will be maintained. I'm not going to disclose what is being discussed with me. That's what the tool says. But the tool also takes the consent that, I mean, it's a long consent. Lawyers can read. Usually we try to interpret it, but we can't, which also says, but we will use it for training the tool, right? So it is training the tool. Training doesn't come on its own. Training is done by, that is a human in the loop, right? So someone is watching me. That's the debates that's going on in most of the courts globally, right? If you go into the American Senate, that's the discussion. Who is observing you? Who is reading? Who's reading your documents? What is being public and what is private? So, having said that, I mean, I rest that case. I'm sure all of us will discover up across the technologies because legal profession is going to become more and more important to a tech world. And that's also because if you go and now start saying what kind of job roles will evolve beyond the traditional 40% back office that we are talking, millions of new jobs will come. I'll give you an example. I think today, if you look at the corporate world, Anthony, there are three situations, distinctive situations. Imagine I'm an employee. I, the employee, the organization does not know. which means I'm doing something with technology, machine outside the office as well, which can have a snowballing effect later, right? Which will lead to a lot of other good job for lawyers, more jobs for lawyers, right? The second is the organization knows, but the employee doesn't know because organization has large legal frameworks, guardrails built, and we are so dependent on lawyers, the legal system within the company to give the legal education to people who are involved, including businesses which sign up contractual obligations with the other businesses involving AI, including data privacy, which cloud, which not cloud, which hyperscaler, which, and with so much of cloud sovereignty coming into picture, it's adding much more element to your AI technology and the twist. The third element is where the organization doesn't know and even the individual doesn't know. That seems to be opening a huge Pandora box. But all three situations are good for legal profession. That's what I wanted to say.
So I think the point essentially is that as right now we have a situation where AI is helping to augment human judgment, right? It's becoming one of the tools that we use, right? But I think we are also sort of very fast going towards a place where more and more even lawyers themselves would trust an output from an AI that there is some level of credibility attached to it because it is from XYZ tool which I use, I trust, and hence that will be my starting point. Whereas earlier the starting point would have been something that itself has been generated manually. Like for example, like drafting is an iterative process, right? So you would usually draft, let's say you're drafting an SLP, you'll take one of your older drafts and then from that you will then whittle down whatever is needed and what is not needed. But now we may have reached a stage where you may have put the impugned order there and say, can you draft an SLP, give me the ground and questions of law, and that is your new starting point. So will we ever reach a stage, I mean, it's a point of something that to think about, where it gives you a fully drafted SLP and then that is that's good to file, and that's something that we have to really think about. So in fact, on this I had a question to Prabhu sir actually on this. Right now, where do you see it? I mean, how do you see rather AI systems presently where it is right now augmenting human judgment? Not, I mean, I wouldn't say we've reached a stage where it can replace human judgment yet, but how do you see it augmenting human judgment?
It is an assistance for the advocate to make a better judgment. For example, as you said, when an SLP is drafted by using an AI tool, you will have to first know whether that's a substantial question of law. Without you knowing what is a substantial question of law, you can't validate what is being given to you. So today, you can't simply rely on this AI tool for your drafting. It is like this. There are templates. Earlier, you used to have books where it will give you templates of how do you draft a money claim, how do you draft a petition before the NCLT, whatever may be. Today, it is all on soft copies. It's all on the net. Today, that is available. That was available earlier also. But what comes out of that is necessarily have to be looked at by you. Now, argumenting for a lawyer, how this is going to help. Just as I said earlier, completely making an analysis of the case judgments which you're going to use for this case is going to be faster. A chart to be prepared for this case on the issues and what is to be answered for it is going to be made by this, which a junior used to do earlier, can be done through a module. And just as what Dhruv was saying, that he was able to use open software, open AI to use it. Today, there is a change, probably he may validate it. Today, there are certain firms, I'm not talking about law firms, there are certain firms which are doing accounting firms are there. They have an in-house AI tool. Earlier, they used to do it in an Excel sheet where they will have a clicking and a hyperclicking. Now, what they have done is they have a data analyst in their office. They have an engineer who sits in their office. So the recruitment in a law firm today will be a data analyst and a techno person who will be sitting along with a lawyer. So now what happens is a person who has an engineering degree and who has done an AI and also has a law degree will be a more perfect person to do a data analysis than a normal person who does a data analysis. So the evolution of, or the transformation for the moment, because this is now a virgin subject which has to be tested, time tested, and it's going to be a long time which we are going to test on it. Plus and minuses, your checks and balances, regulatory frameworks on this, what information you can feed in, what information you can't feed in, what agreements you'll have to put with your clients if you are going to feed in the documents in a public domain. All these things have to be placed. That's not placed today. So what happens is today, this transformation only looks at, earlier everybody used to say, just like a BA, BSc degree, today everybody is an engineer. Now today we'll have to rethink on that, because the more the technology has come in, you require a lot of more engineers there, as well as you must learn law. Today we have in our chamber one advocate who did his engineering in IIT, and he has studied law and he's practicing. Today, he has an edge over the others in analyzing the data and to say what is safer for me to put this into the tool and to take out information what I require. Again, I'll come to square one where you started of drafting in SLP. That is where you will have to again come back. How do you analyze the draft? So we cannot become this coders who have not lost their thinking capacity. As a lawyer, as an advocate, as a litigating lawyer, or an in-house lawyer, you'll have to be on your feet. And that is not going to get vanished at all. How many number of augmentation it's going to give you, you'll have to validate yourself. Unless and until like this bicentennial movie, where ultimately a jury says, okay, we accept you as a human being. Unless that is done, it is not going to replace humans. It's definitely going to argument. Probably Dhruv will be much more on it to say, Dhruv and Rohan will be much more on to say, where now there are big law firms which tries to have their AI inside.
Yes.
And they train their tools because they will not have they will not have any breach of the informations. As Dhruv said about important information which can be fed in, results can be brought in. So therefore, we'll have to embrace and move forward and keep ourselves abreast to the technology which is there.
Right. In fact, Richard Susskind's very famous book, Tomorrow's Lawyers, I think is one of the earliest writers on AI and law. He has a term for that. It's called legal technologist. So he says that in the future, that will be one of the professions that actually comes up. So, so it's very, yes, please.
Because there are a lot of students here, we also skill even the engineers, right? We design a lot of things taking, architects are also born with support from AI these days. There are two ways. One is your deductive and inductive way of structuring, right? What we miss in India to a large extent, that education also got discussed earlier, is how do we even write hypothesis? So that's our major concern today, Anthony. If every one of us in this room know how to actually write a hypothesis and test the hypothesis, then it's fine whether you're going to draw conclusion with support from AI or not. Our intelligence is going to be how do we write a hypothesis. For example, rather than going to go and prompt AI to get responses, first put your responses onto the AI and ask AI, what is that I seem to have missed out in my hypothesis? Then there are more conversations and debates. Suppose you put a litigation there and said, what seems to have got missed out in this? What is excluded? Or you say, it appears that ABCD have been excluded in this overall judgment that has been put in the system. Then there is a verification. I see there is a lot more responsibility coming from the younger advocates who are going to start, or even the older. I'm saying young means young from technology, not from age or seniority. Using the technology, who is going to build our shape the AI? Because the whole conversation is how the legal profession is going to be shaped. I think it's largely rests in the hands of the professionals. How you're going to test AI's intelligence. I think that's, and how you're going to make conversation with the AI. That's what you're going to do as a responsible future. I think today is for tomorrow, actually, because the past is gone, right? So the past data, I think this has been our major concern. Go and talk to most of the professionals in India today. I mean, I can run a test. Just give them a case study and say, come out with 4 different hypotheses around this situation. If somebody can give you a problem statement or a hypothesis, then you know that's the person who will be brilliant to work with AI. I mean, that's just I'm resting my case there, not.
But so it does raise many interesting questions on what is the future of how will AI? What are the additional roles that are going to come up? What are the roles it will minimize? As a lawyer that we perform on an everyday basis. So Rohan, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Anthony. Once again, something to keep in mind, which I mentioned earlier, right? A lawyer who is going to be standing in front of a judge and arguing is, in my opinion, at least in India at this point, and for at least the next decade, not under threat. Okay, but because there are just so many human elements in preparing that. I mean, not in preparing, but yes, being there in court, engaging with the place and making it. But like I said, 40 to 50% of our profession is made of people who do not have to go to court or cannot. No, that is not their job. They are in front of a desk. They have certain things to do. And to be honest, the majority of the students here will also probably be considering some version of that kind of a task. Why is that task currently available? Because up until this point in time, the act of drafting or reviewing a contract was seen as a completely manual task, unautomatable. Okay. Now it is actually becoming automated, or it is becoming significantly augmented, as I said earlier, meaning the number of roles for that kind of a job, your junior associate at A0 level in a law firm, or your day zero hire at a company, a big corporate legal team, that will reduce. Okay. And I think if you have a particular vision in mind as a law student about where you want to be 5 years and how it involves being an A0 at a law firm, then you need to change how you want to get there. Number one. What I think is that the ability to have your native legal judgment, your ability, actually, I think one thing which AI has really, like one skill set people really need to bring to AI is thinking about thinking. That is, you have to look at your thought process, which is very implicit in how do you break down an order into components that you can question in an appeal and challenge. And you have to actually externalize it. And once you externalize that, then you are able to create a prompt which allows you to accelerate that output. Similarly, in every process in work, there will be people who are capable of thinking about thinking, breaking down things into workflows, separating those workflows. So one category is the AI augmented lawyer in a conventional practice. That is one, visible category. What's more interesting to me are the other kinds of creatures which are potentially capable of emerging. The second is something people have talked about, which is the AI native law firm. Okay, and the AI native law firm consists of what we call the inverted expert pyramid model. Your experts usually are the smallest in a large pyramid of people in an organization. Okay, at the bottom sit a lot of associates and admin, and then you keep going up, and the expert is at the top. With the AI native law firm, you can turn the whole pyramid upside down. There will be 2 or 3 experts, so subject matter experts. Almost everybody else is there in order to supervise and guide the flow of an AI administrative business process or the execution of work. So a law firm basically consists of a number of tasks. A lot of those tasks are just admin and business. And then the core tasks, which are legal, you need expertise for. But how much expertise, how many people? Now you can have that 3 senior partners and 2 associate team, basically, where the 2 associates are supporting the senior partners in creating the output, basically. The third is something which has actually been in a lot of countries a very established role for a long time, but now is really accelerating, which is called the legal operations specialist, legal ops. If I think the best way someone described legal ops to me is Vaishali Gopal from Counselect, who is in Bangalore. She said, if you imagine the lawyer as the F1 race car driver, the legal operations team is the pit crew. Okay. You don't see what they are doing as glamorous, but they are the ones who are making a 10-second difference to that lead at the end of the race. Because what they do to optimize that whole process is what makes a huge difference. So legal operations in an organization where people understand, okay, this is the actual workflow which happens in a legal teams, corporate legal teams work. This is how we break it down. This is how we support it with knowledge management infrastructure. This is how we support it with sound. Let's take all this messy data and find a way to organize it and structure it in such a way that, as you said, ma'am, the most essential requirement on an organizational level for AI to actually stick, not for it to be a one-off use case, is cleaning the data. And legal ops is the kind of role which will do that. And lawyers actually have a lot to do with legal ops. Yeah. So these are at least three possible futures, which I mean, like varieties of futures I can see lawyers getting into. There are so many more potential ones, including the lawyerless law firm, okay, which is scary from a regulatory perspective, but entirely possible right now. Okay, it is not impossible. That is not a good regulatory thing, but people will create these models. You will see them coming up, and this is and completely automated, running like with on OpenClaw type setups, basically. So these are things which you'll see in the future, but yeah, at least a few I can visualize. Yeah. Yeah, cyber security and law is definitely going to be a very, very necessary. Yeah.
In fact, just if I may add to that, ma'am is absolutely right, right? Because if just in terms of how job profiles have also evolved, you had an IT head, then you suddenly had like cybersecurity attacks happening on systems. Then you had to come up with like a information security, a CISO, and some of these designations that historically didn't exist. Now, in an AI world, what is the one thing which has become pretty, I would say, common across industries, regardless of whether you're a manufacturing company or a tech company, is in some form data, right? So now, when with data being so critical in so many businesses, you have a data protection officer role that's suddenly coming up, right? AI is going to become very, very critical in a lot of these organizations that end up adopting it in whatever form. You could be building your own agents, you could be adopting a third party tool. You need to make sure you do vendor diligence, you are asking the right questions in terms of how that AI tool is being adopted, how is it being used internally. And now you have like chief AI officers or AI ethics officers, right? And a lot of these positions today, in some sense, I mean, there is of course experience that comes with being a lawyer or being in an industry and having that subject matter expertise. But in a lot of ways, it's also creating a level playing field that where somebody who's, a much older lawyer, but not very well versed with the technology side of things, versus a younger lawyer who's not very well versed with the legal side of things, but understands the technology side of things, can, if not really sort of compete, but start applying for some of these opportunities that are out there. And I think that's a great opportunity. So for lawyers, for law students who are interested in technology, right? Who, I mean, you don't need to know everything, but if there is an inherent interest and and you want to explore areas like this, right? Where you want to take interest in AI, in data. These are great rules and something that today a lot of organizations don't have. Some of the bigger ones do, but in the times to come, every organization will end up having these opportunities.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, Dhruv, but as somebody who does speak a lot about privacy and the DPDP Act, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the privacy regulations in the present form. I mean, is that a matter of concern, especially as we increase the adoption of AI tools? Is that something that as lawyers we should be more, something that should play on our minds?
100%. So I think I started off with that, right? That at the end of the day, when we started putting, so we use a third-party legal tech tool, right, which is deployed on our systems in Office, which is, so when we started putting it in our engagement letters that we will be using this third-party tool, we got resistance from a lot of people, right, saying that no, we're not comfortable putting our data on these third-party tools, and we were trying to give them comfort because see, the tool adds value. And when we were trying to onboard this tool, we were obviously also trying to ask the right questions. Are you SOC 2 compliant? Do you have the right kind of security systems in place? What happens to model training? Is our data going to be hosted on the cloud? Is it hosted only on our premises? And basically ensured that let us put whatever checks and balances that we can understand in terms of how this tool is deployed so that our clients ultimately get comfort. But again, I think we're in that transition right now where a lot of these tools are being questioned by everybody and for good reason, right? I mean, by no means am I saying that their concerns are not valid. So a lot of clients which are in regulated industries, which are, like I said, have multiple reporting requirements, are coming in saying, look, don't put our data on this. some of the companies and some of our clients are quite okay saying that, look, if it adds efficiency, go ahead, we don't have a problem, and it's part of the engagement letter. And from a privacy law perspective, right, like the question that you were asking, that essentially pertains to like personal data, right? Like it's the lens with which we need to look at that laws is that. But from a confidentiality perspective, it's definitely a point that comes up in almost all conversations. The fact that, if I put this data on like a free version of Chat GPT where somebody puts and uploads a document, I mean, that's a big problem, right? Now, I mean, of course, privacy, confidentiality to some extent overlap, but for me, it's a much, much, much bigger confidentiality breach. And a lot of organizations, right? I mean, I was in the UK a couple of months back, speaking at a very similar panel, and there was somebody who was the general counsel of a healthcare company that does clinical trials, and she said that, you know sometimes I feel that a lot of these AI tools add so much value to the research that we are doing, but our organization, as a matter of practice, on all our laptops has banned ChatGPT, for example, and some of these other tools, so we can't access them on our official laptop. And then in the course of the conversation, she said, but sometimes we just need a much more deeper analysis to what we are doing to even test our own hypothesis in terms of the research we are doing. So I go back home and I put the same query minus the confidential information on my husband's laptop and then try and see whether it's adding value that I can then take back to work the next day. So a bit of a, like I said, transitionary phase for us. And but from a confidentiality perspective, it's a no-brainer. I mean, as a law firm, if your client is not okay, don't put that data on any third-party tools. And if you're onboarding a third-party tool, make sure that you've done the right vendor due diligence before you get them on board.
Thank you. That's actually quite very practical advice, I would say. No, ma'am, I'm actually a question to you from more from a consumer perspective. From how do you see these AI tools, increasing access to sort of to legal services for because the reality is for a lot of small businesses and individuals, the most lawyers are very expensive. I won't say that expensive only good lawyers, only expensive lawyers are good, but then the fact remains that for most cases you get what you pay for, right? And legal services, even in India, which is considered a much cheaper jurisdiction or more less expensive jurisdiction, is still considerably cheaper expensive for an everyday person. So how do you see AI tools or these legal tech tools reducing this cost?
I think we are spending a lot in India on building the application layer. A lot being done on the for consumers from the applications perspective. So I think the more we consume, it's going to become accessible for everybody, right? That's number one. So you had a question, in fact, lawyers. In my earlier panel, there was this lady who said, right? She said, why is that only 12,000 lawyers even access what I have given? Right? That was a question, but nobody answered a question, right? So I think the more we access, obviously. Let me just come back. I think what's most important in India is there are a whole lot of AI models which have kicked in, especially for language services. I think in legal profession today, we want quick translation of the case. I think most of the legal cases, what I hear, is just not moving. It's just because people are looking for translation. So let us not worry about anything else. How can we quickly adopt the translation services first? I think will clear a whole lot of issues to start with, right? Second is we must understand that AI or technology does not know gender. It does not have any bias. But we must be careful whether we are putting a conscious bias into it, into the system. I think lawyers play a very important role. So if you want access, I think first we need to also see how many of your helplines today, which comes under a particular jurisdiction, can be automated very quickly. If there is no automation behind, AI tools being built as an application there, I don't think would really make any sense. But my humble submission is let's start quickly leveraging the translation services so that it can benefit the society at large.
So I think we do have time for a couple of questions. So, sorry? Okay, sure. So I think we have time for 2 questions. Yeah, so, yes. Okay, yeah, we have a last bench question from some students. So,
We are very delighted that there is a question from the last bench. Ma'am, there is a last bench question, not last bench.
yes.
Yes. My question is to Madam there. Ma'am, since you are working for HCL and this thing, ma'am, how do you see this? In the earlier panel was there also this was discussed. How do you see this NVIDIA, TCSM taking over the AI chip manufacturing in global level? So how do you see India coming up with this, and how do you see that the impact of this monopolization? How do you see India will face an impact? So, what is your how do you see as going forward? How do you see to solve this monopoly issue?
I'll try to answer the question. If you can test the question also with various chatbots available also right after this. So first of all, sir, not everybody makes chip in the world. There is no necessity. Number two, sir, you don't need that many chips also because the number of programs we got to go and put into the chip is also going to be less. Number three, of course, there will be a lot of data centers because you need more data. Today, with this little tiny chip, you can have so much of data being stored. So there is a technology. We have a choice in India. Okay, I'm just wearing a sustainability hat here. Do you want to spend millions of resources, especially water and other natural resources, in making a technology, or you want to generate a lot of income and employability by building application layer over such technology? If I am a humble taxpayer, I would rather choose the second one over the first one. So we do have packaging industry when it comes to chips. So we are actually evolving. We are focusing on industries which will create more employment. We are not creating industries which will absorb a lot of natural resources because we are already scarce of resources. It's a very simple, straightforward answer wearing my sustainability hat. And what probably we want from one employability, given that we have 440 million people in India who are in the age group which is going to be soon employed. We would rather leverage human capital than leverage the scarce resources. That's my response. But you can check with other bots also.
We do have time for a couple of more questions. So, yes, I think we had a question there. Yes, please. Yes.
Good evening, sir. My name is Abhinesh from VMLS. My question is that a panel discussed about lawyerless law firms. Law firms are going towards lawyerless law firms. Is that truly possible to make a law firm without the lawyers? Or if that is so, will people accept it, sir?
Yeah. So when you say possible, we'll divide possible into, is it possible from a regulatory perspective and possible from a technological perspective? Okay. From a regulatory perspective, 100% no. Okay. Our regulations are strict, and I am very thankful for that. What I'm saying is, I've had the fortune to practice in different parts of legal practice, including IP prosecution, trademark prosecution, patents. Very often you have I have a client who gets an email from some random organization or the other saying your trademark application is now under examination. It is going to be abandoned soon. You please give me the power of attorney and we'll start. These are not lawyer firms, but they are firms of people who are providing legal adjacent services. And they are not bound by the same ethical and regulatory issues that lawyers are. Okay. So therefore, from a business and technology perspective, that's possible. In this current scenario, the kind of automation that is possible to create will allow you to simply upload or create a form interface where you say, okay, you want a trademark licensing agreement, NDA, here is your form entry field. Here is your output. Before you get the form entry field, please use your UPI or credit card and provide it, and immediately you receive an output. It will be more decent than if you yourself had tried running it in ChatGPT for sure. Okay. Or you can automate an entire trademark prosecution process from end to end using enough amount of technology to bypass the IP India website captures. So I'm trying to divide possible as, is it possible because of the legal scenario allowing it? No, not at all. Is it possible because technology allows it? Even today, yes, it is possible. And I think that these models will become more visible for better or worse. And I'm not saying they're a good thing. I'm saying they're a thing we should watch out for and be aware that will exist soon, basically.
Is there any possibles to legal system to make it possible, sir? Will legal system allow it in maybe future?
It will not. Definitely not.
Okay.
Because the human element will only stand before the bar council and not the machine.
Yeah, okay.
Unless and until you recognize the machine as a legal entity.
Even physical AI.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So that will not happen.
So you're a young person, right? And you're going to become a lawyer. The same question arises even among engineers who are coding. Okay, so it's arising in all minds, right? So first of all, you must understand you're in a most honorable profession, which is where whenever you need to meet a client, it's a client conversations, and it's explainable. Whatever you want to produce must be explainable, and it has to be done with transparency. These two are fundamental nature of a human being. That is what makes us different from machines. So for some professions, we do need the human in the loop. And all legal frameworks across the globe today have come together to look at various roles and various opportunities where human in the loop is essential in the entire value chain of services. So these are some things which cannot be compromised, right? Just to give you that.
Thank you.
This reminds me, there's actually a very recent movie on Amazon Prime called Mercy, on an AI criminal court. It's quite interesting to watch. Something probably the students can watch. Anyway, so thank you. I think we can. Yeah, we do. Please.
So, good evening to the respected panelist. I'm Ashwin from VMLS. So, sir, if a lawyer relies on any AI tool for their research or drafting, to what extent should they want to disclose to their client? If such disclose means, will it amount to any professional misconduct or a breach of fiduciary duty?
Excellent question. Okay. The point is that when you'll have all kinds of clients first, right? You'll have clients that don't care about what tools you use, and then you will work with clients who are very particular about how their data is used. If you are going to share any client data, because you have to understand that as an advocate, there is first and foremost, there is attorney-client privilege communication, right? So whatever information that you are sharing with your client is covered under attorney-client privilege. And if that information you end up putting on a third-party tool, then it's questionable in terms of, that sensitive information is now in public domain. Will it still get covered or not if that comes in public domain? So largely speaking, I would say that if you're going to use a third-party tool, make sure that your client knows that you're planning to use it.
Thank you, sir.
So we have a question from Professor Raj. Mike.
Thank you so much for this fascinating discussion. One of the things that I want to share with you is that now in US law firms, the thinking has emerged that the client, if you don't use AI to be able to provide the best possible legal services, you run the risk of being sued for not getting adequate advice. So in some ways, it has become obligatory on the part of law firms and lawyers to actually use ChatGPT or whatever, because till such time that the firm or the lawyer has not yet given the best possible advice on the matter. So it can lead to professional misconduct if you actually don't use AI. The second thing I just want to ask this question to Srimati. This is a question which, we are also, you were I'm happy that you were romanticizing the legal profession and the idea of this dramatic lawyer, representing people. One of the things that has happened is that the growth and evolution of technology has shaped all aspects of humankind. In a country like India, with more than 5 crore cases pending in Indian courts, that type of lawyering that you talked about is unfortunately limited to the Supreme Court and maybe a few high courts. But one of the things that we would like tech companies to invest, and here I'm going to make a critical observation that tech companies have not yet focused on the big problems of India, which is in this case access to justice. If you can do something with AI, recognizing this monumental challenge of access to justice. In fact, Niti Aayog has estimated that if in the current rate in which we are going, it might take more than 150 years to actually address the question of pendency. So, what is it that tech companies like you can do, are doing, so that you can address this larger problem of access to justice and delays, especially when they are waiting? Never before in the past, traditional institutions have become so much open to, because there's a sense of desperation. Everything has been tried for at least 3 decades. Pre-COVID, we had 3 crore cases pending, and post-COVID, it's jumped to 5.25 crore cases pending. What can you do as a major technological company?
Absolutely. So I think your question is very fair, and many of us actually have not started focusing much on the legal profession because of the legal profession by itself, right? And it's a very focused domain, and people whom we service as service sector are largely those are non-legal in a sense by the industry itself. Industry domain itself has been like that. Unfortunately, most of the large law firms who have been working in this area have not automated also much earlier. Probably to a large extent, they've had their BPO operating from here, a captive using a shared services or so on. Technology adoption to transform the way you work is evolving. I think the first is how do you want to transform? How do you really want to position yourself from the legal angle is something which we are also trying to discover today, Raj. There is no, like the way you've just said that in US, yes, there is a law which says if you have not done your research well, if you have not done your search in all the domain across the world for on the data points that you need to validate before you rest the case with the jury, right? Then it means that you have not done your homework. Such very enlightening points have not really existing in India. I think it's the other way. If there is a purpose, if the you believe, of course, one is a social justice. That's a separate one on CSR and what we have to do with the Raj, even Sarvam, which has just come now, which can be a translation services. As you know, some companies, including HCL Tech, has invested, and we've started looking at translation as number one because it will have a cascading effect on the way that problems will get solved in India in the larger growth. You're absolutely right. There's a lot more to do. But what is the purpose? What is it we are trying to do transformation? It's not about lawyerless law firm. What is it we are going to, if it's about 350 cases or 350 years it's going to take to complete our cases. I mean, we need a purpose. Social justice is there. Help us to understand. I think there is a lot where all the industries can come together. I can't speak on behalf of my company, but I'm sure organizations like us would love to come and contribute towards that cause. Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, ma'am, are you done?
Yeah. So I was just saying years ago, you know, even at FIR, I was just telling your team yesterday, how to even file a FIR, a common man does not know. I'm just saying this is where we are. So I think, do I know how to file an FIR using my own language, whether it's a Tamil, Telugu, or Hindi? Itself is a question today. So there's a lot of access to information which is available, but still people are not aware. I think the point also starts as a consumer there. I'm sure there's a lot to do. I do accept and I relate to your question very well.
Just so that I can add to that and perhaps talk about some of the initiatives that are also happening on ground, right? So there is a startup called Adalat.ai, right? So Adalat, they are actually helping bring about efficiency within courts, and they started with district courts, I think in Kerala, if I'm not wrong, where they said that as the judges, because typically if you think of a judge's schedule, right, he's hearing matters, sometimes he's dictating orders, then post the court, he has to then verify and sign off on those orders, then he has to read files for next day, he has to write his judgments, etc., all of which happens after court. So I think what Adalat is doing essentially is making sure that those orders are getting transcribed in real time and saving on the time that judges are spending in their day working on those orders so that they can focus on other things. And also legal research, right? Including with AI, there are lots of tools now because this fundamental question that, look, you have a senior advocate making an argument in court with a team of 20 juniors ends up getting a favorable order. You suddenly make the same argument or look at another lawyer in a tier 2, tier 3 city who perhaps doesn't have the right kind of resources to get the judgment that he wants to use in court to get the same order. You need to ensure that legal research comes at a level playing field so that the quality of research never comes in the way of access to justice, right? And there are platforms today that are also trying to solve for that.
Sorry, the only thing I want to say is yes, Adalat is really important because they identified exactly your bottleneck as the first thing, ma'am, which they worked on. Transcription of cross-examination proceedings, because the whole cross-examination occurs in whichever language in which it does occur, and usually has to be translated into English or Hindi, and the time it takes for that to happen could be the couple of years sometimes that an under trial sits inside jail
And goes on appeal.
and goes on appeal. Yeah. And Adalat found that to be a bottleneck where they are solving the problem. So you should definitely check out organizations like not-for-profit organizations like Adalat.ai who are doing a good mission using AI.
And with respect to this access to judgments and these research work, today you have the SEC which has come up with an AI tool also. Manuputra had already. Manuputra in fact started with this. They even mapped how a judge will pass an order, a particular judge having a particular mindset to pass an order in a particular way. Earlier you used to say, when we used to practice before the rent control code, we will say he's a landlord judge, he's a tenant judge. And when we come for a CRP before the High Court, we will usually say, no, this judge is a landlord judge, we'll keep our case pending. We'll not move this now. Then we'll move a tenant case. So these mappings are now done by these AI tools. They feed in these judgments of these judges. And what happens to, as law students today, you can use this is, you need not go to each court and see how this judge is going to pass an order. Sitting at back in your place in a tier 3 city, tier 3 in a village, you can access and see how this judge is going to pass an order, and you can make your preparation to make an effective preparation and to make a presentation to the judge to get an order in his alignment. Because you have, similarly, when you come to this company laws, taxation, you have judges on far right and far left, and judges who are in between. And this can also be found out from their judgments, the manner in which they judge, how do they see a provision of law in a far right manner, in a far left manner. That has a bearing pan-India, that has a bearing pan-world, because the latest judgment by the Supreme Court on Nestle had a ramification. So these type of things can also be found out using these AI tools. Feed in your judgments, and this is already available in the market. It is not something which is not available in the market. This, and therefore, as Anthony put it at the first, saying whether there will be inequalities. The inequalities will be brought down because of this. Because of AI, inequalities will be actually brought down. Because a person sitting in village can also have a laptop, access to this SEC, access to this Manuputra, access to taxman, whatever journals you name it. And he can, this inequality can be brought down rather than inequality coming up. So embracing is with the lawyer who is going to practice.
Thank you. You've all been a wonderful audience, and I also thank Stella panel for your wonderful comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I would like to invite Mr. Siddharth Raja, the Executive Dean for Vinayaka Missions Law School, to felicitate our esteemed panelists. First off, Miss Srimati Shivashankar. Mr. Shivshankar, Miss Shivshankar.
Oh, okay. I get the first one.
All right. Ladies always first. Mr. Prabhu Arun Kumar. Mr. Prabhu Arun Kumar. Mr. Rohan George. And Mr. Dhruv Suri.
You can now go. You can go on the campaign trail. Thank you.
And Mr. Anthony Julian. Thank you so much. You all have been a wonderful audience, and thank you for all attending this session. It was a wonderful discussion. Thank you all.
I just like to close by, in addition to say that the report of this today's seminar, we've had some wonderful student rapporteurs put it together. Give us maybe a week or so, and we will have a synopsis, a report of the seminar circulated and put into the public domain, actually, to be followed by more such endeavors between our center and the Cyril Shroff Center. Thank you so much. Good evening.
So, good evening. We have another event after this in another 20 minutes. So, this program is over. Thank you so much.
I'm just getting the bottles and everything arranged. Just for you. हाँ, the setup is okay. हाँ, कुछ increase करना होगा कर दूँगा. हाँ,
India's freedom, countless acts of courage in homes, in prisons, in silence, and in songs. Yet, when that freedom finally
put back the
Thank you for all. Thank you so much. They went very well. Went very well. I know. Yeah, a little bit very nervous. Okay. But I believe it was all telecast at the end of the day. Yeah, later they just yeah, I understand. That's good. Which means it is all on YouTube. Right? One can see the whole session. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Sir, Ramesh, I'll see you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Your panel was very engaging.
And all very well.
And
I
I
think all.
actually support your view. I'm not a communist.
Sir, you need the podium. Actually, so you need the podium. Podium चाहिए? Podium चाहिए आपको अपने लिए? नहीं मतलब well when you are speaking you need the podium. 2 minutes.
Yes. Thank you for your idea.
Then I'll connect you to I'll give you common Felix Reda. Let them know later.